Welcome, my night wanderersa. Tonight, we step behind the velvet curtains of Los Angeles' most famous theaters, where applause and laughter once filled the era, and where now whispers, footsteps, and shadowy figures linger in the wings. Actors never really left these stages. Some vanished under mysterious circumstances. Others died tragically. Yet their spirits remain, performing for an audience that cannot see them. From grand movie palaces to intimate playhouses, these theaters hold tales of ghostly performers, mysterious apparitions, and unexplained phenomena that have terrified staff and patrons alike. So dim the lights, silence your phones, and lead us explore the 25 most haunted theaters in Los Angeles, where actors never left. Pantages Theater in Hollywood, California, stands as one of the city's most iconic landmarks, a symbol of glamour, drama, and entertainment. Built in 1930, the theater has hosted countless performances, from grand Broadway productions to intimate concerts, attracting audiences from around the world. Its ornate Art Deco design, glittering chandeliers, and intricate moldings create an atmosphere of elegance and history. And while its main halls and auditoriums continue to bustle with energy during performances, there are areas of the theater that come alive in unexpected ways when crowds have gone. And while its main halls and auditoriums continue to bustle with energy during performances, there are areas of the theater that come alive in unexpected ways when the crowds have gone. Its ornate Art Deco design, glittering chandeliers, and intricate moldings create an atmosphere of elegance and history. And while its main halls and auditoriums continue to bustle with energy during performances, there are areas of the theater that come alive in unexpected ways when the crowds have gone. For decades, performers, backstage staff, and maintenance workers have reported experiences that suggest Pantages may be more than just a historic venue. It may be a place where the past lingers, and where the boundary between the living and the unseen is blurred. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at Pantages Theater involves a shadowy figure seen backstage. Staff members often describe encountering a tall man dressed in a tuxedo, appearing near rehearsal spaces or along darkened hallways behind the stage. He is usually silent, standing with a formal posture as if observing the action, and then vanishes without a trace. Backstage assistants recall nights when rehearsals would be interrupted by fleeting glimpses of this figure leaning against walls or watching performers from the wings. Many describe an overwhelming sense of presence when he is near, as though his gaze is tangible, and the air itself seems to grow heavier. Some performers have reported feeling watched even when they are alone on stage, and the shadowy man has been described as both unnerving and strangely protective, as if he is ensuring the show continues smoothly from beyond. Along with these visual encounters, auditory phenomena are also commonly reported. Performers have described hearing applause echoing through the empty theater, the soft murmur of whispered conversations, and the occasional creak of a floorboard as though someone is pacing unseen. One dancer recalled arriving early for a rehearsal and hearing the faint sound of clapping in the orchestra pit, even though no one else was present. Another singer reported hearing whispered comments about her performance as she practiced alone under the dim stage lights. These sounds are often fleeting and difficult to locate, but they are described with enough consistency that many performers and staff have come to accept them as part of the theater's atmosphere. Legend holds that the shadowy figure and the mysterious sounds are linked to a former leading man who tragically died during a performance decades ago. Though records from the era are sparse, stories passed down among theater employees describe a charismatic actor who once captivated audiences with his charm and talent, only to meet an untimely death on stage. Some believe that his spirit remains in the theater, watching over performers, revisiting the applause he once earned, and lingering in areas where the magic of live performance is strongest. Staff members often refer to him with a mixture of respect and unease, acknowledging his presence as part of the theater's living history. Staff describe feeling sudden chills, hearing soft footsteps on empty floors, and catching glimpses of movement from the corner of their eyes. The figure was tall, imposing, and seemed to be watching her with an unblinking gaze. When she turned to confront it, The space was empty, but she could still feel a weight in the air, a lingering presence that seemed almost human. These experiences are often reported by multiple staff members independently, suggesting that the occurrences are more than simple imagination or coincidence. Some of the theater's performers have also claimed that the spirit interacts with rehearsals in subtle ways. Actors have reported that lines they stumble over suddenly come easier when they feel the presence of a figure, and dancers have described a sense of timing or rhythm that seems guided by an unseen hand. While some dismiss these accounts as superstition, many who have experienced it firsthand insist that there is an undeniable intelligence and awareness in the occurrences. Many who have experienced it firsthand insist that there is an undeniable intelligence and awareness in the occurrences. It is as if the spirit of the former leading man continues to participate in the theater-esque productions, ensuring that performances maintain a certain level of excellence even when no audience is present. Pantages Theatria's architecture amplifies the sense of haunting. Its grand stages, tall ceilings, and labyrinthine backstage corridors create acoustics that carry sound in unexpected ways. Whispers, footsteps, and applause seem to travel through walls, making it difficult to determine their source. Dim lighting casts shadows that appear to shift and move, while reflective surfaces distort movement, creating fleeting images that appear and vanish in the blink of an eye. Even seasoned performers and staff admit that the theater's design makes it easier to interpret ordinary sounds and shadows as something more mysterious. Yet the experiences described are often detailed and consistent enough to suggest a genuine presence. Visitors who have stayed behind after shows occasionally report similar experiences. One early evening patron who returned to retrieve a dropped program described hearing faint clapping in the empty auditorium. Another visitor recounted the sensation of being watched while walking down a backstage hallway, noticing a shadowy figure that disappeared around a corner. These occasional encounters contribute to theater-esque mystique and reinforce the belief that Pantages is not merely a historic building, but a living repository of past performances, memories, and perhaps the lingering essence of those who dedicated their lives to its stages. For those who work closely in the theater, Pantages is more than a venue. It is a space where past and present intersect in strange and compelling ways. The shadowy man, phantom applause, whispers, and fleeting movements transform the ordinary backstage environment into a realm where history, artistry, and the paranormal coexist. The theater itself becomes a stage not just for the living, but for echoes of the past, replaying moments of triumph, tension, and emotion that transcend time. Even when the house lights are down and the theater is empty, Pantages is never truly silent. The shadowy figure, phantom applause, whispers, and mysterious footsteps serve as reminders that the building holds more than seats, stages, and props. Beneath its ornate ceilings and behind its gilded walls lies a hidden world where the past continues to perform, where the spirit of a former leading man may still watch over the stages, and where the magic of theater extends beyond life, lingering long after the final curtain has fallen. The Orpheum Theater in downtown Los Angeles is one of the city's most iconic historic venues, a place where the grandeur of the past still resonates within its walls. Built in 1926, the theater has hosted countless performances, from operas and concerts to plays and vaudeville shows, attracting audiences with its ornate architecture, gilded balconies, and sweeping grand staircase. From operas and concerts to plays and vaudeville shows, attracting audiences with its ornate architecture, gilded balconies, and sweeping grand staircase. Attracting audiences with its ornate architecture, gilded balconies, and sweeping grand staircase. By day, the Orpheum hums with the activity of staff, performers, and visitors, all drawn to its rich history and striking Art Deco design. Yet as night falls and the crowd depart, the theater transforms into a space that is quieter, darker, and in some respects, eerily alive. Guests, staff, and performers have long reported unexplained phenomena: phantom footsteps, moving props, and apparitions that seem to watch from the shadows, suggesting that the theater may be home to more than just memories of past performances. One of the most frequently reported experiences at the Orpheum Theater involves phantom footsteps. Guests and employees often hear the sound of shoes clicking along the grand staircase, ascending or descending as if someone is making their way through the theater. Security personnel recount evenings when they patrolled the building alone and heard measured, deliberate steps echoing through the main lobby and along the staircases. One night, a guard named Hernandez recalled hearing the unmistakable sound of footsteps climbing the grand staircase toward the balcony. Expecting to encounter a late visitor or staff member, he looked up only to see the staircase empty. The footsteps continued for several moments, fading into the stillness, leaving behind the impression that an invisible presence was moving through the theater. Many employees and guests alike described this phenomenon as one of the theater's most unsettling experiences, particularly because the sound is so distinct and human, yet comes from no visible source. Actors and performers at the Orpheum have also reported unusual activity affecting the stage and props. Backdrops, chairs, and other objects are said to move on their own, often when rehearsals are underway or when no one is present in the theater. A stagehand named Rivera described arriving early to prepare for a rehearsal, only to find that props had been repositioned from where they had been carefully placed the previous evening. Attempts to explain the changes logicalia, air currents, vibrations, or human aurora failed to account for precision of the movements. Other performers have reported that objects seem to shift when they are on stage, sometimes even return in positions that replicate the movement of past shows. These occurrences contribute to the sense that the theater itself is replaying fragments of its history, as though the space remembers performances and participants from decades past. Perhaps the most striking and consistently reported apparition at the Orpheum is that of a woman in a long gown, often seen lingering in the balcony or gliding along darkened corridors. Witnesses describe her as elegant, with flowing hair and a poised presence, her appearance accompanied by a faint chill in the air. Performers have recounted rehearsals during which they felt watched by an unseen audience, catching glimpses of the figure out of the corner of their eyes. Guests attending evening tours or events have also reported spotting her in shadowed areas of the balcony, only for her to vanish when approached. Paranormal experts who have studied the Orpheum believe she may be the spirit of a former opera singer who tragically died mid-performance, her presence tied forever to the theater she once graced with her talent. Backstage areas, stairwells, and hidden corridors serve as focal points for much of the reported activity. Employees recount feeling sudden chills, seeing shadows flicker along the walls, or hearing faint murmurs and whispers that cannot be explained. One makeup artist described preparing for a rehearsal when she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder, followed by a soft exhale of air, as if someone had walked past her. Turning quickly, she saw nothing, but a sense of presence lingered, accompanied by a faint, distant sound of applause. Such experiences are reported repeatedly, suggesting that the Orpheum's unusual occurrences are both real and persistent, rather than the product of imagination. The theater's architecture enhances the sense of haunting. The sweeping grand staircase, high ceilings, and intricately carved balconies create acoustics that carry footsteps, whispers, and movement in ways that amplify their presence. And reflective surfaces distort shapes, creating fleeting images that occur after dark. The design itself seems to invite the mysterious, transforming ordinary sounds and movements into phenomena that are difficult to explain. Paranormal experts who have studied the Orpheum suggest that the theater's long history of performances, passion, and human energy may have left an imprint on the space. The phantom footsteps, moving props, and the apparition of the woman in the gown may represent residual energy, replaying echoes of the theater's past. Others speculate that the opera singer's spirit remains present due to the tragic circumstances of her death, tied forever to the theater she loved and the stage she graced, observing rehearsals and performances as she once did in life. These interpretations give the Orpheum an air of mystery that has intrigued historians, performers, and ghost enthusiasts alike. Guests who remain in the theater after shows sometimes encounter the same phenomena. One visitor reported hearing footsteps climbing the grand staircase while exploring the auditorium, followed by a faint whisper of applause from the empty seats. Another described seeing the figure of a woman in the balcony, her gown illuminated by a shaft of dim light, only to vanish when approached. These experiences reinforce the notion that the Orpheum Theater is not merely a historic building, but a space where the past continues to play out in subtle, often unsettling ways. For performers, staff, and visitors alike, the Orpheum Theater is more than a venue. It is a living repository of history, memory, and perhaps the supernatural. The shadowy figure, phantom footsteps, moving props, and lingering presence of the opera singer transform the theater into a space where the ordinary and the extraordinary intersect. They are conduits for echoes of performances, applause, and lives that continue to linger. Phantom footsteps, shifting props, and the apparition of the woman in the gown remind performers, staff, and visitors. In the quiet hours of the night, the theater awakens, replaying fragments of its past, offering a glimpse into a world where presence, performance, and memory coexist long after the final curtain has fallen. The Ace Hotel Theater in downtown Los Angeles is a landmark of both architectural grandeur and cinematic history. Originally opened as the United Artists Theater in 1927, it was commissioned by Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks to serve as a home for their film productions and premieres. Its ornate interior, featuring soaring ceilings, gilded balconies, and intricate murals, evokes the glamour and elegance of Hollywood-esque golden era. By day, the theater hums with activity as staff prepare for events, actors rehearse, and visitors explore its historic halls. The atmosphere is alive with the whispers of the past, as if the very walls are watching and waiting. Yet, beneath the polished floors and glowing chandeliers, the Ace Hotel Theater has long been associated with unexplained phenomena. Staff, performers, and maintenance workers have reported a range of paranormal experiences, from cold spots and flickering lights to phantom whispers and apparitions pacing the stage, suggesting that the theater is not only a vessel of history, but a place where the past continues to linger in tangible, sometimes unsettling ways. One of the most frequently reported occurrences at the Ace Hotel Theater is the presence of cold spots, sudden drops in temperature that seem to defy explanation. Staff working late into the evening often describe walking into a room or backstage area and feeling an abrupt chill, even when the heating system is functioning normally. Security personnel have noted that these cold spots often coincide with other strange phenomena, such as flickering lights or unexplained sounds. For many employees, the sensation is more than uncomfortability. It carries with a feeling of being watched, as if some unseen presence occupies the space alongside them. These drops in temperature, often brief but intense, are a common introduction to theater's more visual and auditory apparitions. Flickering lights are another hallmark of the Ace Hotel Theater's late-night mysteries. Staff report overhead lights pulsing or dimming erratically, particularly in corridors and backstage areas. One stagehand, Rivera, described preparing for a rehearsal when the lights in the dressing room began to flicker in rapid succession, casting moving shadows across the walls. As she approached the stage, the lights stabilized, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows themselves were observing her movements. Flickering lights are often accompanied by other phenomena, including whispers, footsteps, or the sudden movement of props, giving staff the impression that the theater itself is alive, reacting to the presence of those who occupy it. Phantom whispers and disembodied voices are another frequently reported experience. Actors and crew members alike describe hearing murmured conversations or fragmented phrases when the theater is otherwise empty. A rehearsal assistant, Hernandez, recounted a night when he heard voices drifting from the wings of the stage while no one else was present. The whispers seemed to respond to his movements, fading when he approached their source, and reappearing moments later in another part of the room. Other performers have reported hearing encouraging words, faint laughter, or even the soft murmur of applause during rehearsals, giving the impression that the theater continues to host audiences and spectators long after the physical crowd has departed. These auditory phenomena contribute to a pervasive sense that the Ace Hotel Theater is a space where past and present intermingle in ways that defy ordinary explanation. Perhaps the most striking and unsettling occurrences involve visual apparitions. Actors have reported seeing shadowy figures pacing the stage during rehearsals, often vanishing when approached. One performer, Patel, described rehearsing alone late at night, when he saw a silhouette moving along the proscenium arch, seemingly adjusting props, and moving between entrances and exits. As he approached, the figure faded into the darkness, leaving only the faint echo of footsteps. Others have described fleeting images of figures standing in the wings, watching silently, or moving across the stage as a continuing performance from decades past. These sightings are often accompanied by cold spots, flickering lights, and whispers, suggesting a layered experience that combines auditory, visual, and tactile elements of the paranormal. Backstage areas, dressing rooms, and hidden corridors are particularly active zones for these occurrences. Crew members report sudden chills, the creaking of floorboards under unseen weight, and doors opening and closing without explanation. One makeup artist recounted being alone in a dressing room when the scent of floral perfume suddenly filled the air, followed by the faint murmur of a woman's voice. When she looked around, the room was empty. Incidents like these are frequent enough that staff have come to accept them as part of the theater's personality, recognizing that the Ace Hotel is a space where the energy of past performers may still linger. Paranormal experts who have studied the Ace Hotel Theater suggest that the phenomena may be linked to its long history as the United Artists Theater. For decades, it hosted film premieres, live performances, and rehearsals, often filled with the excitement, tension, and emotion of creative work. The residual energy from countless performances may have left imprints on the theater, manifesting as cold spots, whispers, and apparitions. Others speculate that the figures seen pacing the stage may be former performers or patrons whose presence remains tied to the theater, replaying echoes of their lives and performances in a loop that is perceptible under certain conditions. Even visitors who arrive after hours occasionally encounter strange occurrences. One early evening patron described hearing faint footsteps climbing the backstage stairs, followed by soft murmurs and the subtle rustling of curtains. Another recounted glimpsing a shadow moving along the balcony during a quiet tour, only to have it vanish when they turned toward it. These experiences reinforce the notion that the Ace Hotel Theater is more than a historical building. It is a living space where past and present coexist, and where traces of former performers, audience members, and staff continue to linger in subtle and sometimes startling ways. For performers and staff who work late, the Ace Hotel Theater is a place where ordinary reality intersects with the extraordinary. The cold spots, flickering lights, phantom whispers, and visual apparitions transform the theater into a stage for unseen activity, where echoes of the past continue to play out in the present. The grand staircase, the wings, the dressing rooms, and the stage itself become more than physical structures. They become conduits of the theater as history, memory, and perhaps even the lingering presence of spirits who once inhabited its spaces. Even when the lights are down and the theater is empty, the Ace Hotel Theater is never truly silent. Phantom footsteps, shadowy figures, flickering lights, and disembodied whispers serve as a reminder that beneath the gilded ceilings and historic arches lies a hidden realm. In the quiet hours of the night, the theater awakens, replaying fragments of rehearsals, performances, and moments from the past, offering those who remain a glimpse into a world where the energy, presence, and passion of former performers continue to live long after the audience is gone. El Capitan Theater in Hollywood stands as a shining relic of classic cinema. Opened in 1926, this historic theater has been a hub for movie premieres, live performances, and countless audience gatherings. Its ornate Art Deco interior, with towering columns, intricate moldings, and a grand stage, evokes an air of elegance and spectacle. During the day, El Capitan is a bustling venue, filled with staff preparing for screenings, performers rehearsing for live shows, and visitors exploring the history and architecture of the space. But when the last audience members leave and the house lights dim, the theater transforms. What was once a lively hub of entertainment becomes a quiet, almost otherworldly place, where echoes of the past resurface and stories from decades ago seem to replay themselves. Visitors and staff alike have reported experiences that suggest El Capitan may be haunted by the memories and perhaps the spirits of performers and patrons who once filled its halls. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at El Capitan involves phantom sounds that echo through the empty auditorium. Visitors have described hearing the faint hum of old film projectors turning over reels, accompanied by the muffled sounds of dialogue, music, and applause from empty seats. Some staff report hearing laughter and cheering as if an audience is still present, reacting to a movie screening long ended. One night, a custodian named Rivera recalled walking down the central aisle of the theater after hours when she distinctly heard the rhythmic clapping of an audience. Looking around, she found the theater completely empty. The sound seemed to emanate from every corner, filling the vast space as though a full house were still seated, entranced by the silver screen. Such auditory phenomena are reported with surprising consistency, suggesting that the theater itself preserves echoes of the countless performances and screenings it has hosted over nearly a century. In addition to phantom sounds, visual encounters are another common occurrence. Staff members have reported seeing shadowy figures moving across the stage or in the aisles, often dressed in period costumes that evoke the theater's early days. One stagehand, Hernandez, recounted an experience while setting up for a rehearsal. As he adjusted the curtains, he noticed a faint silhouette of a man in a top hat and tailcoat pacing across the stage. The figure seemed unaware of his presence, and when Hernandez called out, it vanished instantly into dim backstage shadows. Other employees described seeing similar apparitions, including women in long, flowing dresses and performers from the theater's vaudeville days, appearing briefly before fading into darkness. These sightings suggest that some of the theater's earlier performers, or echoes of them, may still linger, replaying moments from the past in a spectral rehearsal that never truly ends. Backstage and behind the curtains, these experiences are often even more pronounced. Stagehands, actors, and crew members report hearing footsteps pacing corridors, doors opening and closing on their own, and props shifting without explanation. A costume designer named Patel described arriving late one evening to find period costumes in the dressing room slightly altered, as if someone had tried them on or moved them. Though no one else was in the building, the feeling of presence lingered, accompanied by the faint smell of old perfume and cologne. Such occurrences reinforce the notion that the theater itself holds memories of those who once inhabited it, creating a bridge between the past and present that can be felt by anyone working after hours. The architecture of El Capitan Theater contributes significantly to these experiences. Its soaring ceilings, long corridors, and grand auditorium create acoustics that carry sound in unusual ways, making it difficult to determine the origin of footsteps, whispers, or applause. Dim lighting casts shadows that appear to move independently, and reflective surfaces amplify faint movements, giving the impression that figures are gliding across the stage or balcony. The combination of sound, shadow, and space transforms ordinary after-hours activity into something far more mysterious, where even a small noise can seem alive with unseen presence. Many who have experienced the phenomena speculate that they are connected to the theater's long and storied history. El Capitan has hosted decades of premieres, live shows, and performances, each generating energy, emotion, and movement. Paranormal experts suggest that the shadows and echoes may be residual impressions of past events, replaying in certain conditions when the theater is empty and quiet. Others believe that the spirits of performers who dedicated their lives to the stage may linger, unwilling or unable to leave the place where they once captivated audiences. Visitors who remain after hours occasionally report similar encounters. One guest exploring the balcony after a special event heard faint footsteps pacing the floor above, along with the soft rustle of a gown. Another reported hearing applause and laughter echoing through the auditorium while standing alone in the empty theater. These experiences contribute to the theater's reputation as a place where history and the present intersect, creating an atmosphere of both reverence and intrigue. For staff and performers, El Capitan Theater is more than just a venue. It is a living repository of the past. Shadowy figures, phantom applause, whispered conversations, and the sound of invisible footsteps transform the theater into a space where ordinary and extraordinary coexist. The stage, balconies, aisles, and dressing rooms become more than physical structures. They are conduits for echoes of the past, replaying fragments of performances, audience reactions, and moments of Hollywood history. Even when the house is empty and the lights are dim, El Capitan Theater is never truly silent. Phantom applause, shadowy figures in period costumes, and echoes of old screenings remind staff and visitors alike that beneath its gilded ceilings and ornate walls lies a hidden realm. In the quiet hours, the theater awakens, replaying fragments of its history, and offering a glimpse into a world where the memories and presence of those who once graced its stages continue to linger long after the final curtain has fallen. The Greek Theater, nestled in the scenic hills of Griffith Park, Los Angeles, is one of the city's most celebrated outdoor venues. Built in 1929, it has been the stage for countless concerts, theatrical performances, and live events, attracting musicians and audiences from across the world. Its open-air design, surrounded by towering trees and winding pathways, provides a natural amphitheater that enhances both acoustics and ambience. By day, the Greek Theater buzzes with activity. Crews set up stages, performers rehearse, and visitors explore the surrounding park. However, when the last audience members depart and the venue falls silent, the theater takes on an entirely different character. Staff, performers, and musicians have reported unusual and unsettling occurrences that suggest the Greek Theater may be haunted not by malevolent spirits, but by echoes of its storied past. Among the most frequently reported phenomena are phantom sounds, particularly the lingering notes of instruments. Musicians rehearsing alone in the empty venue often report hearing faint music, the sound of violins, cellos, or piano keys playing in sequences they did not perform. One guitarist, preparing for a late-night rehearsal, recounted hearing a full string section playing softly in harmony, as if an unseen orchestra had assembled on stage. The music would sometimes crescendo briefly, only to fade into silence moments later. These phantom melodies are so vivid that performers describe feeling as though they are part of an invisible ensemble, interacting with unseen musicians who seem intent on continuing their work even after the real audience has gone home. Performers and crew members also describe physical sensations that suggest the presence of unseen hands. Stagehands report props moving unexpectedly, curtains shifting on their own, and objects subtly repositioned after rehearsals. Dancers and actors have recounted feeling gentle touches on their shoulders, guiding them in movement or adjusting their position on stage. One singer described a chilling moment while performing a solo. She felt a firm but gentle hand correcting her posture, as though someone were ensuring she delivered her best performance. Many believe these interactions are the influence of a former conductor or stage manager, a spirit devoted to maintaining the integrity and flow of performances even after death. Shadowy figures have also been observed, though rarely, by those working late hours. Crew members describe vague silhouettes gliding across the stage or appearing briefly in the wings, only to vanish when approached. These figures are typically described as male, often dressed in formal attire resembling that of a conductor from the early 20th century. Some performers report sensing a commanding presence near the orchestra pit, as if an unseen conductor is orchestrating not only phantom music, but also guiding the timing and movement of performers on stage. The combination of auditory, visual, and tactile phenomena create an atmosphere where performers and staff feel simultaneously watched, guided, and inspired by forces beyond the ordinary. Unlike enclosed theaters, the amphitheater is surrounded by natural acoustics, which can amplify faint sounds and create echoes that seem to come from no discernible source. The gentle rustle of leaves, the wind sweeping through the surrounding hills, and the distant calls of wildlife often blend with phantom music and whispers, making it difficult to determine where natural sound ends and the supernatural begins. Staff have noted that on particularly quiet nights, the whispers of the past seem more pronounced, with the echo of instruments or the soft murmur of an audience replaying in the open air. Local legend holds that the Greek Theater is haunted by the spirit of a former orchestra conductor, a man who devoted his life to the music performed on the Venue S stage. According to the stories, he insisted on precision and excellence, conducting countless concerts during the theater's early decades. Some believe that, in death, he continues to conduct unseen performances, guiding musicians and performers who come after him. Musicians who have encountered the phantom music or sense an unseen presence often report an inexplicable sense of encouragement, as if the conductor's spirit is quietly coaching them to achieve perfection. It is a presence described not as frightening, but as commanding, exacting, and yet oddly protective. Even stage crew members who do not perform note the theater's peculiar activity. Props and equipment sometimes seem to anticipate movement, as if someone has already adjusted them for upcoming performances. Lights occasionally flicker in sync with phantom sounds, and shadows play across the stage as though tracing the movements of performers long gone. One stagehand described setting up for a concert and feeling an inexplicable sense of timing, as though the space itself was helping coordinate the performers' positions. These experiences, while subtle, contribute to a pervasive feeling that the Greek theater exists not only in the present moment, but also in a continuum that stretches back decades, preserving echoes of past performances. Visitors who arrive after hours have also recounted strange auditory and visual phenomena. One late-night photographer exploring the theater reported hearing the faint trill of a violin and the soft rustle of sheet music flipping pages, though no one else was present. Another visitor noted a fleeting shadow moving across the stage and the gentle sway of a curtain, as if a breeze carried the figure past. These subtle interactions reinforce the belief that the Greek theater remains alive with the energy of those who performed there long ago, and that the spirit of the conductor, in particular, continues to guide the music and performances that echo through the open-air venue. For performers, staff, and visitors, the Greek theater is more than just an outdoor concert venue. It is a space where the past is woven into the present. Phantom instruments, unseen hands, shadowy figures, and whispers of long-past audiences transform the theater into a living museum of sound, motion, and memory. The stage, orchestra pit, and seating area are more than physical structures. They are conduits of the echoes of musicians and performers who dedicated their lives to bringing the arts to life. The phantom music, guiding presences, and fleeting shadows serve as reminders that the history of this iconic venue continues to resonate. In the stillness of night, the theater awakens, replaying the sounds and movements of its past performers, offering a glimpse into a hidden world, where passion, precision, and artistry remain alive, long after the last note has faded. The Wiltern Theater in Koreatown, Los Angeles, is a landmark of both architectural beauty and entertainment history. Opened in 1931, its striking Art Deco exterior and lavish interior have made it a favorite venue for concerts, theatrical performances, and live events. The theater's intricate design, with its towering columns, ornate moldings, and expansive stage, reflects a bygone era of Hollywood glamour. By day, the Wiltern is a bustling space filled with performers, stagehands, and staff preparing for events. But as the day fades and the house lights dim, the theater takes on an entirely different character. Employees and performers alike have reported unusual experiences in the venue's darker, quieter horse of phenomena that suggest the Wiltern is not just a historic theater, but a place where the echoes of the past continue to linger. One of the most commonly reported occurrences at the Wiltern involves flickering lights. Stagehands and performers recount evenings when lighting fixtures backstage and in hallways pulse or dim unexpectedly. Sometimes the flickers coincide with the presence of cold spots or the movement of objects, giving the impression that the theater itself is alive and responding to unseen forces. A lighting technician named Rivera described arriving early one evening to prepare for a concert. As she checked the backstage lamps, they began to flicker rapidly, casting moving shadows across the walls. She sensed the presence in the room, a weighty awareness, yet when she looked, the space was empty. For many staff, these moments are not only unnerving but also inexplicable, as the theater's electrical systems function normally and no external cause could be identified. Cold spots are another frequently reported phenomenon. Performers and crew members describe sudden drops in temperature in specific areas, often near dressing rooms, stairwells, or backstage corridors. These cold spots seem to appear without warning and often accompany other unusual activity, such as whispered voices or the movement of props. One stagehand, Patel, recalled carrying equipment across a hallway when he suddenly felt the air chill dramatically. Despite the warmth outside, he could see his breath in the sudden cold and felt an uncanny sense of being watched. Such cold spots contribute to Alterna-S reputation as a space where the physical environment itself seems to respond to invisible presences. Whispers in empty dressing rooms are another aspect of the theater's eerie atmosphere. Actors and musicians have reported hearing faint murmurs of conversation when no one else is present. These whispers are subtle and fleeting, often fading when the listener turns to locate them. Yet they are consistently reported by different performers. Many believe that these voices are residual echoes of past performers or stagehands, continuing their work in the quiet hours when the theater is empty. Perhaps the most dramatic encounter involves a shadowy figure observed during a rehearsal. A musician recounted an evening when he arrived early to test sound levels for an upcoming performance. As he played, he noticed a dark silhouette seated in the front row of the theater, watching intently. He called out, assuming it was another member of the crew, but when he turned to approach, the figure vanished without a trace. This experience left a lasting impression on him, as the presence seemed deliberate, focused, and aware, as though someone near or something was observing the performance in anticipation of the show. Similar sightings have been described by other performers, who report seeing fleeting figures near the stage or along the aisles, vanishing the moment they are noticed. The architecture and design of the Wiltern contribute to these uncanny experiences. Its tall ceilings, long corridor, and expansive stage create acoustics that carry whispers, footsteps, and other sounds in ways that make them seem closer or more deliberate than they are. Dim lighting casts moving shadows that can resemble human figures, while reflective surfaces distort movement, creating fleeting images that seem to walk, stand, or glide across the stage and hallways. The combination of visual, auditory, and environmental cues amplifies the theater's mysterious reputation, making ordinary sounds and movements appear imbued with presence. Paranormal experts who have investigated the Wiltern suggest that these phenomena may be tied to the theater's long history of performances and rehearsals. Over the decades, countless musicians, actors, and stagehands have worked, performed, and lingered in its halls, leaving behind traces of energy and presence. Residual energy may manifest as flickering lights, cold spots, whispers, or shadowy figures, particularly when the theater is quiet and the activity of the day is ended. Others speculate that the theater may be haunted by a single focused spirit, perhaps a former performer or conductor, who continues to observe and guide events after dark. Visitors and staff who remain in the Wiltern after hours occasionally report experiences that mirror those of performers. One late-night guest described hearing footsteps pacing the stage while exploring the amphitheater. Another noted seeing a fleeting shadow cross the orchestra section, accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature. These encounters suggest that the Wiltern is not merely a historical building, but a place where the past continues to assert its presence, reminding all who enter that the theater is alive with memories and energy. For performers, staff, and visitors alike, the Wiltern Theater represents more than just a venue. Flickering lights, phantom cold spots, whispers, and shadowy figures transform it into a space where history, energy, and the supernatural converge. The stage, backstage areas, dressing rooms, and seating all become conduits for echoes of past performances. Even when the theater is empty and the curtain is down, the Wiltern is never truly still. Phantom footsteps, unexplained chills, whispering voices, and fleeting shadowy figures serve as reminders that beneath its ornate ceilings and historic walls, a hidden world persists. In the quiet hours, the Wiltern awakens, replaying fragments of rehearsals and performances, offering a glimpse into a realm where the past lingers and the presence of those who once graced its stage continues to resonate long after the last audience member has departed. The Orpheum Theater in West Adams, Los Angeles, is a historic gem that has quietly witnessed decades of performances, entertainment, and the evolution of show business. Unlike its larger counterparts in Hollywood, this smaller Orpheum retains a sense of intimacy that makes its atmosphere both captivating and, according to some, eerily alive. Built in the early 20th century, the theater became a hub for vaudeville acts, early stage productions, and traveling performers. Its architecture reflects the grandeur of a bygone era, with a compact yet elegant auditorium, intricate moldings, and a stage that has hosted countless actors, dancers, and musicians. While audiences today flock to the theater for live shows and community events, those who work behind the scenes have long whispered of unusual experiences that suggest the Orpheum may harbor echoes of its past performers, lingering in ways that go beyond memory. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves props mysteriously moving or being misplaced. Stagehands and performers often discover that items, carefully positioned during rehearsals or left backstage, have shifted inexplicably. Chairs, costume pieces, and set elements appear in locations that make no sense given the Dia-esque activities. One crew member recounted preparing the stage for a performance when he found a set of props arranged exactly as it had been used in a vaudeville sketch decades earlier. No one else had been present to move them, yet their placement seemed deliberate, as if someone unseen was rehearsing routines from the theater-esque past. Doors opening on their own is another common occurrence. Staff have reported moments when doors to dressing rooms, storage areas, and stage wings swing open without explanation. One stagehand, Rivera, described walking backstage late at night and hearing a door creak open, followed by the faint sound of footsteps pacing the wings. When she approached the area, the corridor was empty. These events often coincide with other phenomena, such as cold spots, sudden drafts, or the faint hum of distant voices, reinforcing the sense that the theater is inhabited by unseen presences. Perhaps the most striking reports come from sightings of ghostly figures. Actors and crew members have occasionally glimpsed shadowy shapes moving along the wings or disappearing behind curtains. These figures are often described as dressed in period costumes, reminiscent of vaudeville performers from the theater-esque early days. Some staff have reported seeing figures pacing deliberately, as if rehearsing routines, while others describe fleeting silhouettes that appear to watch from the edges of the stage before vanishing. One performer recounted an experience during a late rehearsal when she saw a shadowy man in a top hat and tailcoat striding across the stage, mimicking the gestures of a routine she had studied for a show. When she blinked, the figure had disappeared, leaving only a lingering sense of presence and movement. These sightings are so consistent among staff and performers that many have come to accept the possibility that the spirits of past performers continue to inhabit the theater, replaying the routines they once perfected. Backstage areas, hallways, and wings seem to be focal points for much of the Orpheum-esque unusual activity. Crew members report feeling sudden chills or a shift in the air as if someone is walking past them. Props occasionally respond to these presences, moving slightly or making subtle noises, as though invisible hands are interacting with them. One costume designer described noticing a hat rolling across a dressing table, seemingly in response to her movement on stage. Experiences such as these suggest that the theater is alive with residual energy, preserving echoes of past performances in ways that are both tactile and perceptible. The theater's architecture contributes to the mysterious atmosphere. Its compact auditorium, high ceilings, and narrow wings amplify sounds, creating echoes that can make ordinary movements appear deliberate. Shadows cast by stage lighting and reflective surfaces enhance fleeting glimpses of figures, while backstage corridors create the perfect environment for movement to seem both deliberate and unexplained. Backstage corridors create the perfect environment for movement to seem both deliberate and unexplained. These features allow ordinary sounds, drafts, and movements to be interpreted as more than natural occurrences, reinforcing the theater-esque reputation as a place where the past continues to perform. Paranormal enthusiasts who have investigated the Orpheum suggest that its haunting may stem from the theater-esque deep connection to vaudeville performers and the energy of live entertainment. The repeated routines, rehearsals, and performances over decades could have left residual impressions that continue to manifest as movements, sounds, and visual phenomena. Some theorize that the spirits of dedicated performers remain tethered to the theater, compelled to continue practicing their acts long after the audience is gone. These unseen performers may be invisible, yet their presence is felt in the shifts of props, the opening of doors, and the pacing of shadows across the stage. Even visitors and patrons who stay late after shows have occasionally reported fleeting phenomena. One evening, A guest exploring the auditorium after performance described seeing a silhouette pacing the stage and hearing faint laughter echoing through the wings. Another visitor noted the sudden movement of a prop on the stage, seemingly responding to the rhythm of imagined footsteps. These experiences reinforce the belief that the Orpheum Theater is not merely a relic of history, but a space where echoes of past performers persist, leaving an imprint on both the physical environment and the people who occupy it. For staff, performers, and visitors alike, the Orpheum Theater is more than a venue. It is a living repository of entertainment history. Shadowy figures, misplaced props, doors opening without explanation, and whispered echoes transform the theater into a space where the past and present intermingle. The stage, wings, and backstage areas become conduits for the movements and routines of performers long gone, ensuring that the energy of the theater endures. Even after the final curtain falls and the theater is empty, the Orpheum continues its quiet performance. Ghostly figures, mysterious movements, and echoes of vaudeville routines serve as reminders that beneath its historic architecture lies a hidden world where the spirit of performance never truly ends. In the silent hours, the Orpheum Theater awakens, replaying fragments of past shows and allowing those present a rare glimpse into a realm where the dedication, energy, and artistry, long after the applause has faded. The theater at Ace Hotel in Hollywood is a remarkable blend of modern renovation and historic charm. Originally built in 1927 as a United Artists Theater, it was meticulously restored to its former glory while adapting to contemporary performance needs. Its grand Art Deco interior, ornate moldings, sweeping balconies, and expansive stage make it a favorite venue for concerts, film premieres, and live performances. By day, the theater is alive with activity actors rehearsing, stagehands preparing props, and staff managing logistics. But as the evening crowds depart and the lights dim, a different side of the Ace Hotel Theater emerges, one that visitors and performers have long described as hauntingly present. Staff and performers alike report experiences that suggest that the theater's historic energy has lingered, manifesting as laughter, footsteps, phantom applause, and even invisible guidance that seems to shape the performances taking place on stage. Among the most frequently reported phenomena are sounds that appear without an obvious source. Actors and crew members have described hearing laughter echoing across empty halls, the creak of floorboards as if someone unseen is pacing, and the unmistakable rhythm of applause in the absence of an audience. One stagehand, Rivera, recalled arriving late one evening to check lighting for an upcoming show. As she walked through the empty auditorium, she heard faint clapping and murmurs of excitement from the front rows. Initially assuming it was another crew member, she quickly realized the theater was empty. As she stood there, frozen in confusion, the sound of laughter and applause seemed to grow louder, more intense. The laughter and applause seemed to be coming from the front rows, where the seats were still occupied by an unseen presence. The stagehand, Rivera, stood frozen, unsure what to do, as the sound of laughter and applause continued to build. She slowly began to back away, her eyes fixed on the front rows, where the unseen presence seemed to be growing more intense. As she reached the door, she turned back to look at the front rows, where the unseen presence seemed to be growing more intense. The sound of laughter and applause seemed to reach a fever pitch, and Rivera turned and ran out of the auditorium. The sound seemed to ripple through the space, fading gradually, but leaving a lingering sense that past performances were being replayed for no one but those present. These auditory experiences are often vivid enough that staff and performers describe feeling as though they are being watched and encouraged by invisible audiences. Backstage areas, corridors, and dressing rooms are frequent sites of unusual activity. Actors often report feeling sudden chills or cold spots that cannot be explained by air conditioning or drafts. Some performers recount feeling invisible hands guiding them through blocking or adjusting their posture, as though an unseen mentor is ensuring the performance is flawless. One young actor preparing for a dramatic scene described feeling a gentle tap on her shoulder and an almost imperceptible nudge, steering her toward her mark. Turning around, she saw nothing but the sensation of presence lingered, providing reassurance rather than fear. Many performers interpret these touches as guidance from a theater's former inhabitants, dedicated artists who continue to watch over the stage, ensuring the next generation of actors succeeds. Visual phenomena have also been reported, although less frequently. Some backstage staff have glimpsed fleeting shadows moving along the wings or disappearing behind curtains. These figures are often described as human in shape, but indistinct, wearing period attire reminiscent of the theater's early days. One performer recounted rehearsing a scene alone when a dark silhouette appeared briefly near the orchestra pit, only to vanish when he blinked. The presence was accompanied by a faint echo of footsteps and the soft rustle of fabric, leaving him with the impression that a past performer was observing or even participating in the rehearsal. These sightings, though brief, are consistent enough among staff and performers to suggest that the theater retains more than just memories. It preserves an active imprint of past performances. The architecture of the Ace Hotel Theater contributes to the intensity of these experiences. Its high ceilings, expansive stage, and intricate balconies create acoustics that carry sound in unusual ways, making whispers, footsteps, and clapping appear amplified and directional. Reflections from polished surfaces and shadows cast by stage lighting can create fleeting images that resemble human figures, further enhancing the sense of presence. The architecture of the Ace Hotel Theater contributes to the intensity of these experiences. Its high ceilings, expansive stage, and intricate balconies create acoustics that carry sound in unusual ways, making whispers, footsteps, and clapping appear amplified and directional. These sightings, though brief, are consistent enough among staff and performers to suggest that the theater retains more than just memories. It preserves an active imprint of past performances. The architecture of the Ace Hotel Theater contributes to the intensity of these experiences. Backstage corridors and dressing rooms, with their narrow passageways and historical details, provide an environment in which small movements or sounds can take on a more deliberate and sentient quality. Paranormal enthusiasts who have investigated the theater suggest that its history as a hub of performance and artistry has left behind residual energy. The laughter, applause, footsteps, and guiding touches may be remnants of performers who devoted their lives to the stage, leaving behind an imprint that continues to manifest under certain conditions. Others propose that specific spirits may linger intentionally, motivated by a desire to influence current performances and ensure that those taking the stage today carry on a tradition of excellence established decades ago. Visitors and audience members who remain after performances have occasionally reported their own unusual encounters. One evening, a guest exploring the theater noted faint applause echoing through the empty rows, followed by a sudden chill that swept over her as she approached the stage. Another visitor recounted hearing the soft patter of footsteps along the balcony and a quiet laugh, though no one was present. These experiences reinforce the sense that the theater is more than a performance space. It is a living archive of the artistry, energy, and presence of those who have walked its stage before. For performers, staff, and visitors, the theater at Ace Hotel is a space where history and the present intersect. Phantom applause, laughter, footsteps, and the sensation of guiding hands transform the theater into a venue where the energy of past performers remains active, influencing those who enter. The stage, wings, dressing rooms, and audience areas are not merely physical structures. They are conduits for echoes of the past, allowing the artistry, dedication, and passion of previous generations to continue to shape performances today. Even when the house is empty and the lights are down, the theater at Ace Hotel is never truly silent. Laughter, footsteps, applause, and invisible guidance serve as reminders that beneath its polished surfaces and ornate architecture lies a hidden world. In the quiet hours, the theater awakens, replaying fragments of rehearsals, performances, and moments of artistic dedication. Replaying fragments of rehearsals, performances, and moments of artistic dedication. Offering all who remain a glimpse into a realm where the spirit of performance endures long after the curtain has fallen. The Belasco Theater in downtown Los Angeles is an historic landmark steeped in theatrical tradition, known for its intimate atmosphere and richly detailed architecture. Opened in 1926, the theater has hosted countless performances, from dramatic plays to lively musical productions, making it a cherished venue for actors, crew, and audiences alike. Its interior exudes old-world elegance, with ornate balconies, intricate moldings, and a stage that has seen decades of artistry unfold. While the theater is alive with activity during performances and rehearsals, those who work behind the scenes have long reported experiences that suggest Belasco is more than just a bodega. It is a place where echoes of the past linger in ways both subtle and unnerving. Among the most frequently reported phenomena are ghostly apparitions. Actors, stagehands, and audience members have occasionally described seeing a man in a top hat moving quietly through the aisles, pacing as though observing performance with careful attention. The figure often appears mid-performance or during rehearsals, vanishing when approached. One actor recalled rehearsing a monologue alone when he noticed a dark silhouette seated in the center of the auditorium, top hat tipped forward, eyes seemingly fixed on him. When he tried to engage, the figure disappeared as if never there, leaving only a chill in the air and the sense of having been watched by an unseen presence. Similarly, a woman in Victorian attire has been observed lingering in the balcony, her form faint but distinct against the theater's decorative backdrop. Performers often feel her presence when delivering lines, as she remains a silent, attentive spectator to every nuance of the show. Unexplained movement of props is another common occurrence at the Belasco. Crew members and actors report seeing objects shift or fall without explanation. During rehearsals, stagehands have noticed chairs moving, scripts sliding from tables, or costume pieces rearranged when no one is present. One director recounted preparing the stage for a critical scene when a small prop rolled across the floor, stopping precisely at the mark where a performer would later step. These incidents often occur mid-performance as well, creating moments that are startling yet oddly precise, as though the spirits are interacting with the live action, maintaining the theater's tradition of meticulous performance. Voices reciting lines are a particularly eerie phenomenon. Actors have reported hearing faint echoes of dialogue from previous performances or rehearsals, sometimes overlapping with their own delivery. During a rehearsal for a classic play, a young actress recalled hearing a second voice delivering her lines in perfect timing with her own, despite being alone on stage. Crew members often hear whispers backstage, reciting lines from the scripts left on tables or murmuring directions for performers. These auditory experiences are usually brief but vivid, leaving those present with the impression that past performers continue to practice, ensuring the theater remains true to its legacy. Cold spots and sudden shift in temperature are frequently reported, especially near the aisles, balconies, and wings of the stage. Performers and staff often feel a sudden chill sweep across the room, particularly when the theater is empty or during late-night rehearsals. Some describe the sensation as the brush of an unseen hand guiding them or repositioning objects. One stagehand recounted feeling a gentle touch on his shoulder while moving a prop, only to turn around and see no one there. These subtle interactions create a palpable sense that the theater is not merely a space of architecture, but a living, responsive environment, filled with the residual energy of those who have dedicated their lives to its stage. The Belasco Theatria's design enhances these supernatural experiences. Its high ceilings, decorative balconies, and narrow corridors amplify sounds, making whispers, footsteps, and applause seem closer than they are. Shadows cast by stage lighting and reflective surfaces can create the impression of figures moving in wings or along aisles. Even small movements of curtains or props can be interpreted as deliberate, further reinforcing the sense of presence. The combination of visual, auditory, and environmental cues transforms ordinary theater activity into something that feels alive with history and unseen participants. Paranormal experts who have studied the Belasco suggest that these phenomena may stem from the theater's long history of performances and rehearsals. Residual energy left by performers over decades could manifest as apparitions, shifting props, or disembodied voices, particularly when the theater is quiet. Others believe that the spirits are not merely residual but active, intentionally interacting with the space and those who work within it. The man in the top hat and the woman in the balcony may be former patrons, actors, or theater staff, compelled to remain by their dedication to the art form and the venue itself. Even audience members have reported unusual encounters. Guests attending late shows have sometimes noticed shadows moving along the edges of the stage or glimpsed figures disappearing behind curtains. Others describe hearing faint whispers or laughter echoing through the aisles, though the house appears empty. These experiences reinforce the theater's reputation as a space where history and the present intersect, where the energy of past performers remains perceptible to those sensitive to it. For actors, staff, and visitors, the Belasco Theater is more than a performance venue. Ghostly figures, shifting props, whispered lines, and phantom applause transform into a space where the past and present converge. The stage, wings, aisles, and balconies act as conduits for the echoes of performers long gone, preserving the energy, dedication, and artistry that have defined the theater for nearly a century. Even after the curtain falls and the theater empties, the Belasco continues to hum with the remnants of its history. Phantom footsteps, shadowy figures, shifting props, and disembodied voices remind all who enter that beneath its ornate walls lies a hidden world. In the quiet hours, the theater awakens, replaying fragments of past performances and offering a glimpse into a realm where the dedication and presence of former performers continue to resonate long after the final applause has faded. The Pico Playhouse, located on Pico Boulevard in Los Angeles, is a historic theater that has quietly witnessed nearly a century of performances, rehearsals, and artistic expression. Opened in the 1920s, the Playhouse became a hub for stage productions, vaudeville acts, and early cinema screenings. Its intimate design, complete with modest stage, closed-set seating, and cozy backstage areas, gives a charm that larger theaters often lack. By day, the Playhouse is a bustling space filled with staff preparing sets, performers rehearsing lines, and stagehands ensuring production runs smoothly. Yet, after the last audience members leave and the lights dim, a different side of the Pico Playhouse emerges, a side that has intrigued and unnerved staff, performers, and visitors for decades. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves a shadowy figure pacing backstage. Staff members and performers have described seeing a dark silhouette moving deliberately along the wings or near dressing rooms, often stopping at points where props or set pieces are stored. The figure is most commonly reported during late-night rehearsals or after performances when the theater is empty. One stagehand recounted an experience while setting up a scene for a small production. He noticed a dark figure moving with measured steps behind the curtains, pausing occasionally as though inspecting the stage. When he approached, the silhouette vanished, leaving only a chill in the air. Many believe this apparition may be the spirit of an actor who once performed at the Playhouse, still drawn to the stage and the performances that continue long after his time. Phantom applause is another common occurrence at the Pico Playhouse. Staff and performers often report hearing the sound of clapping and cheering echoing from empty rows. One actor rehearsing a monologue alone described hearing a crescendo of applause filling the auditorium at the moment of his final line. The sound was so vivid and rhythmic that it felt as though a full audience had been seated applauding every gesture and intonation. When he looked around, the theater was empty, yet the resonance lingered, fading slowly into silence. Crew members have reported similar experiences, often noting that the applause seems to coincide with particularly dramatic moments during rehearsals, suggesting a spirit intent on witnessing performances, as if still alive in the theater's energy. Other auditory phenomena include whispers, faint laughter, and the occasional rustling of costumes or props. Actors have reported hearing lines recited softly, as though a former performer were practicing alongside them. One dancer recounted hearing the soft murmur of rehearsal instructions in the wings while she prepared for a late evening show. Though no one was present, the timing and clarity of the whispers were unmistakable, as if someone invisible were coaching her through the routine. These subtle interactions give a theater an uncanny sense of continuity, connecting the present performers with those who graced the stage decades earlier. The architecture and design of the Pico Playhouse contribute to these eerie experiences. Its low ceilings, narrow backstage corridors, and closed-set seating amplify sounds, making footsteps, whispers, and applause appear more immediate and directed than they are. The stage lighting, combined with shadows cast across the auditorium, can create the illusion of movement, enhancing perception of figures pacing or lingering in the wings. Even small movements of curtains or props take on an otherworldly significance in the dimly lit environment, reinforcing the impression that the theater is alive with unseen presences. Many who have encountered these phenomena believe the theater is haunted by the spirit of an actor who died during a live performance in the 1920s. According to local lore, the actor was deeply passionate about his craft and dedicated his life to the stage. Some believe that, in death, he remains tied to the theater, compelled to watch over performances and ensure the continuation of the art he loved. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences of shadowy figures, phantom applause, whispers, and sudden chills supports the idea that this presence is intentional and attentive, rather than residual or random. Even visitors and audience members occasionally report unusual experiences. Guests staying after performance have described hearing faint clapping from empty seats or seeing movement along the stage's edge. Some note the sensation of being observed, as if someone from another era is silently assessing their actions, evaluating the performance, or simply reliving moments from long ago. These encounters reinforce the Playhouse's reputation as a place where history and the present merge, where the energy of past performers lingers in subtle yet undeniable ways. For staff, performer, and visitors, the Pico Playhouse represents more than just a venue. It is a living repository of theatrical history. The shadowy figure pacing backstage, phantom applause, and disembodied whispers transform it into a space where the past and present coexist. The stage, wings, and auditorium act as conduits for the echoes of performers long gone, preserving their dedication, energy, and artistry for those who enter today. Even when the curtains are drawn and the theater is empty, the Pico Playhouse is never truly silent. The sound of applause, shadowy movements, and whispered lines serve as a reminder that beneath its historic walls lies a hidden world. In the quiet hours, the theater awakens, replaying fragments of performances, allowing those present a glimpse into a realm where the spirit of performance endures, bridging decades of theatrical history long after the final bow has been taken. The Orpheum Theater on Hollywood Boulevard is one of Los Angeles' most iconic performance venues, a grand landmark that has hosted countless productions, vaudeville acts, and concerts since its opening in 1926. With its towering marquee, elegant Art Deco FAA sectionade, and richly detailed interior, the Orpheum has long been a hub for performers and audiences alike. By day, the theater is alive with activity. Stagehands prepare sets, performers rehearse lines, and staff coordinate the logistics of productions that draw crowds from across the city. But as night falls and the audience departs, the theater takes on a different character. For decades, staff and performers have reported strange occurrences suggesting that the Orpheum is more than a historic venue. It is a space where echoes of the past linger, sometimes in unsettling ways. Among the most frequently reported phenomena are mysterious footsteps in the wings. Crew members, especially those working late-night rehearsals or after performances, often hear the sound of someone pacing backstage, though no one is present. The footsteps can be measured and deliberate, as if following a specific route, or erratic, echoing across corridors and disappearing suddenly. The footsteps can be measured and deliberate, as if following a specific route, or erratic, echoing across corridors and disappearing suddenly. One stagehand recalled checking the backstage area after hearing persistent pacing sounds, only to find the wings completely empty. The sensation of being observed, combined with the auditory illusion of movement, leaves many staff members with an undeniable feeling of presence, as though a former member of the theater-esque community is still fulfilling their duties even after death. Doors slamming without explanation are another common occurrence at the Orpheum. Dressing room doors, stage entrances, and storage areas have been reported opening or closing suddenly, sometimes with significant force. One performer described arriving early to rehearse and hearing a series of slams echoing through the empty backstage corridors. At first, she assumed it was a wind or a late-arriving crew member, but after checking every room, she found no one. These incidents often coincide with other strange phenomena, such as unexplained cold spots, flickering lights, or the sound of props being shifted, creating a sense that the theater itself is alive with unseen activity. The haunting of the Orpheum is often attributed to a former stagehand who reportedly died in a fall during the theater's early years. According, the stagehand was a dedicated worker, responsible for moving sets, arranging props, and ensuring performances ran smoothly. The circumstances of his death and accident that occurred while performing as Didiesa left a lasting impression on the theater's history. Many believe that his spirit remains, continuing to walk the wings, manage the stage, and monitor the ongoing performances with a diligence that mirrors his life. This belief is reinforced by the regularity and specificity of the reported phenomena, which seem tied to the areas he once worked and the tasks he once performed. Beyond footsteps and slamming doors, other unusual occurrences have been noted. Crew members occasionally report the shifting of props and set pieces, sometimes in ways that seem purposeful. Chairs may be repositioned, scripts slide from tables, and costumes appear slightly altered, as though an invisible hand is maintaining order or preparing for performance. These experiences are not generally described as threatening. Rather, they convey a sense of presence and continuity, a connection to the theater's history, and the labor of those who help bring performances to life. The architecture of the Orpheum contributes to the persistence of these phenomena. Its high ceilings, narrow wings, and expansive backstage corridors create acoustics that amplify footsteps, whispers, and other sounds, often making them appear closer and more deliberate than they are. Shadows cast by stage lighting and reflective surfaces can create fleeting illusions of movement, enhancing the sense that figures are pacing or watching from the corners of the stage. Even the slight creaking of floorboards or shifting of curtains can take on an uncanny significance in this historic space, reinforcing perception of ghostly activity. The stagehand's dedication, coupled with the repeated routines and performances over decades, may have left a lasting imprint on the theater. Paranormal enthusiasts who have studied the Orpheum suggest that the reported activity is a combination of residual energy and intentional haunting. The stagehand's dedication, coupled with the repeated routines and performances over decades, may have left a lasting imprint on the theater. This energy manifests as footsteps, door movements, and shifting objects, creating an environment in which the past feels alive. Some believe the spirit is not simply a residual echo but a conscious presence, ensuring that the theater remains orderly and attentive even when no one is present. Visitors and staff who encounter these phenomena often describe a mixture of fear, curiosity, and awe. One late-night technician recounted feeling an invisible presence follow him through the wings, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of pacing footsteps. Another performer described hearing the sudden slam of a door mid-rehearsal, which coincided with draft that chilled the air around her. These experiences reinforce the belief that the Orpheum is a living repository of its own history, where the memory of those who work tirelessly behind the scenes continues to assert itself. For staff, performers, and visitors alike, the Orpheum Theater on Hollywood Boulevard represents more than just a historic venue. Ghostly footsteps, slamming doors, shifting props, and subtle touches transform it into a space where past and present coexist. The wings, backstage corridors, and stage itself become conduits for the echoes of a dedicated stagehand and the countless performers who grace its stage. The Alex Theater in Glendale, California, is a historic venue renowned for its grand architecture, rich cultural history, and its role as a hub for performing arts. Opened in 1925, the theater boasts an elegant Spanish colonial revival style, with ornate plasterwork, sweeping arches, and a stage that has hosted countless plays, concerts, and community events. By day, the Alex Theater is filled with the sound of rehearsals, stagehands setting up props, and performers running through lines and choreography. Yet, as the evening crowd depart and the house lights dim, the theater transforms. Behind its historic walls, staff and performers have long reported experiences that suggest the Alex Theater is not only a venue for performances, but also a place where unseen presences linger, watching, interacting, and sometimes participating in the theatrical process. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves whispers and low murmurs in the backstage areas. Actors and crew members have described hearing voices in corridors, dressing rooms, and wings, often while preparing for evening shows. These whispers are rarely distinct enough to be understood fully, but they appear conversational, sometimes resembling lines from rehearsed performances or vague encouragements. One actor recounted rehearsing a difficult scene late at night when he heard faint murmuring behind him. Turning around, he saw no one, yet the whispers continued for several minutes. Such experiences suggest the theater carries the energy of past rehearsals and performers, replaying echoes of dedication and preparation. Shadow figures are another common occurrence. Staff often describe seeing fleeting silhouettes in the wings or along corridors, shapes that move with purpose but vanish when approached. One stagehand reported glimpsing a tall, indistinct figure pacing behind the curtains, pausing occasionally as if observing the ongoing rehearsal. When he stepped closer to investigate, the figure dissolved into shadows, leaving only an unsettling chill. Similar sightings are frequently reported in dressing rooms and narrow backstage hallways, where dim lighting and reflective surfaces enhance the impression of movement. Perhaps the most striking experience reported at the Alex Theater involves a phantom woman who appears to interact directly with performers. One actor recalled preparing for a period drama when he felt a presence behind him. Turning, he noticed a figure dressed in vintage clothing, adjusting his costume with careful hands. Before he could speak or react, the woman disappeared into the darkness of the backstage area. The experience was not frightening but deeply surreal, leaving him with the impression that a past performer or caretaker was still invested in ensuring the Showa-esque quality. Others have reported similar encounters, feeling invisible hands smoothing fabric, adjusting props, or guiding performers subtly without direct communication. These incidents contribute to the belief that the theater-esque spirits are not merely passive echoes but engaged, attentive presences. Auditory phenomena extend beyond whispers. Crew members have reported hearing footsteps on empty corridors, doors opening and closing without explanation, and faint sound of applause from seats that remain unoccupied. One stagehand described checking the hallways after hearing rhythmic pacing, only to find the theater empty. At the same time, the faint echo of clapping seemed to come from the auditorium, as if the presence of an audience or performer from the past was still being felt. These sounds are often most noticeable during late-night rehearsals or when the theater is otherwise quiet, creating a heightened awareness of the theater's mysterious activity. Its high ceilings, narrow backstage corridors, and expansive stage create acoustics that carry whispers, footsteps, and subtle movements in ways that make them appear deliberate and immediate. Shadowy corners, reflective surfaces, and dim lighting can create the illusion of figures moving or observing, enhancing the sense of unseen activity. The Alex Theatria-esque architecture and design amplify these experiences. Even minor shifts of curtains, props, or costume pieces can be perceived as intentional, contributing to the theater-esque reputation as a space where the past is palpable. Paranormal investigators who have explored the Alex Theater suggest that the experiences reported by staff and performers may stem from residual energy left by decades of artistic activity. Actors, stagehands, and caretakers who spent countless hours perfecting performances may have left impressions that continue to manifest in subtle, sensory ways. Some theorists believe certain spirits remain consciously attached to the theater, motivated by a dedication to the craft and a desire to support ongoing performances. The encounters of the phantom woman adjusting costumes are often cited as evidence of an intentional, guiding presence rather than a passive haunting. Visitors and performers alike have occasionally witnessed these phenomena firsthand. Guests exploring the theater after performance have reported glimpsing shadows moving across the stage, hearing faint whispers, or sensing invisible hands on props and set pieces. Such experiences, while fleeting, reinforce the idea that the Alex Theater is not merely a historical building, but a living repository of performance history, where echoes of the past continue to influence the present. For staff, performers, and visitors, the Alex Theater is more than a venue. Whispers, shadow figures, and subtle interactions with phantom presences transform it into a space where past and present coexist. The stage, wings, dressing rooms, and backstage corridors become conduits for the energy and dedication of performers long gone. Even after the curtain falls and the theater is empty, the Alex Theater remains alive with unseen activity, offering a glimpse into a hidden realm where the spirit of performance continues, guiding, observing, and ensuring the legacy of the theater endures long after the final audience has departed. The Mayan Theater in downtown Los Angeles is a remarkable example of early 20th century architecture, renowned for its intricate Mayan-inspired design, ornate carvings, and richly decorated interior. Opened in 1927, the theater became a centerpiece for movies, live performances, and cultural events, drawing crowds eager to experience its unique aesthetic and vibrant atmosphere. By day, the Mayan Theater is alive with activity. Staff preparing the stage, performers rehearsing, and crew members moving props and coordinating technical details. Yet, once the audience is left and the lights dim, the theater transforms into a place where the past lingers, interacting with the present in subtle yet unmistakable ways. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves ghostly patrons appearing in the empty seats. Staff members have described glimpsing figures seated in the auditorium, dressed in fashions from theater's early decades. These apparitions often appear briefly, observed out of the corner of the eye, only to vanish when attention is focused on them. One stagehand recalled setting up the theater for a late screening, when he noticed what appeared to be a full row of patrons, their heads moving slightly as if following the performance. When he approached, the seats were completely empty, yet the feeling of a presence lingered in the air. These sightings suggest that the energy of past audiences may remain imprinted within the theater, continuing to occupy the spaces they once enjoyed. Performers on stage have also reported unsettling experiences. Some actors have described seeing fleeting apparitions moving across the stage, sometimes mimicking gestures or expressions from rehearsals or past productions. One performer recounted preparing for a musical number when she noticed a shadowy figure stepping in time with her movements. As she turned to acknowledge it, the figure disappeared into the dimly lit wings, leaving behind a sense of having been observed by a silent, invisible audience. These apparitions often appear during rehearsals or late-night performances, reinforcing the theater's reputation as a place where the past and present coexist. Auditory phenomena are equally prominent. Staff frequently hear the clink of glasses, faint footsteps, or the distant strains of music in areas that are otherwise empty. One technician described hearing soft jazz playing in a storage room while checking lighting equipment late at night. The music seemed to emanate from no discernible source, filling the room with a faint, melodic presence that faded as quickly as it appeared. Similarly, the sound of glasses clinking, often accompanied by hushed conversations, has been reported in dressing rooms and corridors, suggesting that ghostly patrons may continue to socialize and enjoy the theater even after the crowds have gone. Its high ceilings, ornate balconies, and decorative walls create acoustics that carry faint sounds throughout the space, making whispers, footsteps, and music appear closer and more immediate than they are. Shadows cast by intricate carvings and stage lighting can create fleeting images that resemble human figures, enhancing the sense of unseen presences. The architecture of the Mayan theater amplifies these experiences. Even subtle movements of curtains, props, or set pieces can appear deliberate, contributing. Many believe that these phenomena are tied to theater's long history and the dedication of those who performed, attended, and maintained it over the decades. Paranormal investigators suggest that the ghostly patrons and stage apparitions may be residual energy left by audiences and performers, repeating actions that were once routine. Others theorize that certain spirits remain actively engaged with the theater, observing performances, guiding rehearsals, or interacting with staff in subtle ways. The consistent reports of clinking glasses, faint music, and moving apparitions suggest that these are not isolated incidents, but rather a persistent connection to the theater's vibrant past. Even visitors and audience members have occasionally sensed the theater's unusual energy. Guests staying after late performances have described hearing soft applause from empty rows, or glimpsing fleeting shadows in the auditorium, or sensing invisible presences near the stage. These encounters reinforce the idea that the Mayan theater is more than a historical building. It is a living repository of cultural memory, where the spirits of those who once attended and performed continue to inhabit the space. For performers, staff, and visitors, the Mayan theater is not just a venue, it is a bridge between eras. Ghostly patrons, stage apparitions, phantom music, and the faint clink of glasses transform it into a space where the past interacts with the present, ensuring that the energy of decades of performances remains tangible. The auditorium, stage, wings, and backstage areas act as conduits for the theater's enduring spirit, allowing both performers and audiences to feel the presence of those who came before. Even after the final curtain falls and the theater is empty, the Mayan theater remains alive in subtle, spectral ways. Ghostly figures, whispers, and phantom sounds serve as a reminder that beneath its ornate walls lies a hidden world. In the quiet hours, the theater awakens, replaying fragments of performances, allowing all who enter to experience a space where the dedication, presence, and artistry, and ensuring that the spirit of the Mayan theater endures long after the audience is gone. The Music Box Theater on Hollywood Boulevard is a small but iconic venue with a rich history. Opened in the early 1920s, the theater became known for its intimate size, classic design, and close connection between audience and performance. Its modest stage, narrow wings, and low ceilings create a unique atmosphere, drawing performers and patrons alike into a shared experience that feels personal and immersive. By day, the Music Box is a bustling space with staff preparing screenings or live shows, performers rehearsing lines, and stagehands adjusting props and lighting. Yet, as the day fades and the crowds leave, the theater takes on a different character of presence that staff and performers have long described as both mysterious and unsettling. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at the Music Box involves flickering lights. Crew members and performers often notice stage lights or hall lamps suddenly dimming, brightening, or flickering without any electrical explanation. One projectionist recounted a rehearsal where the lights over the wings began to return to normal when he attempted to adjust the switches. Such incidents are often accompanied by an eerie sense of observation, as though someone unseen is manipulating the environment to draw attention or interact with the performers. Many staff believe these events are linked to the theater's long history and the spirits of those who once worked there, ensuring the space remains animated even after their passing. Many staff believe these events are linked to the theater's long history and the spirits of those who once worked there, ensuring the space remains animated even after their passing. Shadowy figures appearing in the wings are another hallmark of the Music Box's hauntings. Actors and crew are described seeing indistinct silhouettes moving across the stage periphery, occasionally pausing near props or exit doors. One actor recalled preparing for a dramatic scene when he noticed a figure behind the curtain, seemingly observing his every move. As he turned to address it, the shadow vanished, leaving him with only a lingering chill and the sense of having been watched by an invisible presence. These sightings are not isolated. Numerous performers and backstage staff have reported similar encounters, reinforcing the notion that the theater is alive with unseen activity. A central figure in the theater's paranormal lore is a former projectionist who reportedly died on-site many years ago. Staff and performers suggest that his spirit continues to roam the hallways, maintaining an invisible watch over theater. Footsteps echoing in empty corridors, doors opening and closing on their own, and subtle movements of equipment are often attributed to him. One stagehand described hearing the distinct click of a film projector starting, even when no machines were running. Moments later, he noticed a shadow moving near the projection booth before disappearing. The experiences are often fleeting yet vivid, leaving those who witness them a profound sense that the past is still very much present in theater. Other auditory phenomena are equally compelling. Crew members have reported hearing the faint word projectors, distant music, and muted laughter in areas where no one is present. During late-night rehearsals, performers have described the soft creak of floorboards along the wings, footsteps pacing corridors, and whispered lines from previous shows. One musician preparing for a screening felt a brush of air across his arm, as if someone had walked past him. But when he turned, he found no one there. These subtle experiences contribute to the impression that the Music Box Theater is more than a building. It is a vessel for echoes of past performances and the people who brought them to life. The architecture of the Music Box enhances these unusual experiences. Its narrow hallways, small wings, and low ceilings create acoustics that amplify faint sounds, making footsteps, whispers, and other noises seem deliberate. Shadows cast by stage lights and reflection from polished surfaces can give the impression of movement where none exists, further heightening the sense of unseen presences. Even minor shifts in props, curtains, or equipment are interpreted as purposeful interactions by those sensitive to theater's energy, lending credibility to the reports of hauntings. Paranormal experts suggest that the activity at the music box may be a combination of residual energy and active haunting. The projectionist, along with countless performers and staff over the decades, may have left energetic imprints on the space, repeating patterns that continue to manifest under certain conditions. The flickering lights, shadowy figures, and mysterious sounds could be a reflection of both the theater's long history and the lingering presence of a spirit invested in maintaining the venue's vitality. Visitors and performers alike occasionally encounter these phenomena firsthand. Guests staying late after screenings have reported hearing footsteps, seeing shadows flit across the stage, or sensing invisible presences moving through the wings. Performers rehearsing solo acts often experience subtle guidance, as though an unseen mentor is ensuring their movements and timing are correct. These encounters, while fleeting, leave a lasting impression, reminding all who enter that the Music Box Theater is a space where history and the present intersect in mysterious and tangible ways. For performers, staff, and visitors, the Music Box Theater is more than a small Hollywood venue. Shadowy figures, flickering lights, phantom footsteps, and the faint whirring of projector transform it into a place where the past continues to interact with the present. The stage, wings, projection booth, and hallways act as conduits for the energy of former performers and staff, particularly the projectionist whose spirit is said to linger. Even after the house is empty and the lights are down, the music box remains alive with unseen activity, replaying fragments of its history and reminding all who enter that the spirit of performance endures long after the final curtain falls. The TCL Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard is one of Los Angeles' most iconic landmarks, celebrated worldwide for its grandeur, handprints, and footprints of stars, and its pivotal role in cinematic history. Since opening in 1927, the theater has hosted countless premieres, live performances, and public events, cementing its status as a cultural and entertainment hub. By day, it is a bustling destination, filled with tourists admiring the forecourt, staff coordinating tours, and visitors exploring the historic venue. Behind the scenes, however, and especially after crowds have dispersed, the theater takes on a more mysterious character. Over the decades, staff and performers have reported experiences that suggest TCL Chinese Theater is not only a place of cinema and performance, but also a space where the past lingers, often in ghostly and unexplainable ways. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves apparitions near the forecourt. Tourists and security personnel have occasionally described seeing fleeting figures among the handprints and footprints of celebrities. These apparitions often appear dressed in clothing from earlier decades, moving across the courtyard before disappearing suddenly. Some staff believe these ghostly visitors are former moviegoers or performers drawn to the place that defined their lives, lingering in the shadows of Hollywood's golden era. One security guard recalled a late evening when he noticed a faint figure pacing near the handprints of a famous star. As he approached, the figure vanished, leaving only a lingering sense of presence and a chill in the air. Inside the theater, ghostly performers are another common occurrence. Seeing shadowy figures moving across the stage, sometimes mimicking the movements of actors from past performances, only to disappear when anyone looked directly at it. That the stage itself is never truly devoid of performers. The presence of these spirits seems tied to the theater's long history of live events and cinematic premieres, as the energy of countless performances continues to animate the space. Lights flickering without explanation are frequently reported at the TCL Chinese Theater. Crew members have noticed stage lights, lobby chandeliers, and corridor lamps dimming, brightening, or pulsating even when all electrical systems are functioning normally. During one rehearsal, a lighting technician observed the stage lights suddenly flicker in rhythm with the music being played, returning to normal only after several moments. These occurrences often coincide with other unusual phenomena, such as footsteps, shadowy figures, or faint sounds, reinforcing the impression of an active, unseen presence within the theater. Auditory experiences are equally compelling. During late-night rehearsals, performers have described hearing lines from classic films overlapping with their own voices on stage. One projectionist recalled checking the theater after hearing the soft dialogue of a 1930s movie, only to find the screens dark and the equipment turned off. Crew members have also reported hearing footsteps, whispers, and rustling in areas where no one is present. These sounds are usually brief but vivid, leaving a lasting impression of a theater that carries the voices and energy of generations past. The architecture of the TCL Chinese Theater contributes to the intensity of these experiences. Its high ceilings, expansive auditorium, and ornate stage design create acoustics that carry faint sounds throughout the theater, making whispers, footsteps, and faint music appear more immediate than they are. Shadows cast by decorative lanterns, the stage, and intricate ceiling carvings can create fleeting illusions of movement, enhancing the sense of ghostly presence. Even minor shifts in props, curtains, or seating can appear intentional, reinforcing perception that the theater is alive with unseen activity. Many who have encountered these phenomena attribute them to the theater's deep history and the dedication of those who performed, attended, or worked there over the decades. Paranormal investigators suggest that some of the activity may be residual energy, the imprint of countless performances and screenings that continue to manifest as apparitions, lights, and sounds. Others believe that certain spirits remain actively engaged with the theater, observing performances, moving across the stage, or interacting subtly with staff. The repeated reports of ghostly performers, flickering lights, and echoes of dialogue suggest that these experiences are persistent and tied to theater's storied past. Visitors and staff alike occasionally witness these phenomena firsthand. Guests touring the forecourt have described seeing shadowy figures near the handprints of celebrities, while performers rehearsing alone on stage have felt unseen presences guiding or observing their movements. Staff working late often experience fleeting touches, subtle shifts of props, or inexplicable sound that suggest an invisible presence. These encounters, while brief, leave a lasting impression, reminding all who enter that TCL Chinese Theater is a space where history and the present converge in mysterious ways. For staff, performers, and visitors, TCL Chinese Theater is more than a landmark. It is a living monument to Hollywood's past. Ghostly patrons, shadowy stage figures, flickering lights, and echoes of classic films transform it into a space where the past continues to interact with the present. The forecourt, auditorium, stage, and backstage areas act as conduits for the energy and dedication of generations of performers and audiences. Even after the theater is empty and the lights are down, TCL Chinese Theater remains alive with unseen activity, replaying fragments of its history and ensuring that the spirit of Hollywood endures long after the final premiere has concluded. The Egyptian Theater on Hollywood Boulevard is one of Los Angeles' most storied landmarks, famous for its exotic design, ornate hieroglyphics, and historic role in the golden age of cinema. Opened in 1922, it became a premier venue for silent films, stage performances, and cultural events, attracting audiences from across the city and beyond. Its grand Egyptian-inspired architecture, with towering columns, intricate carvings, and a lavish auditorium, gives the theater a timeless charm that continues to captivate visitors. By day, the theater hums with activity of tourists exploring the historic site, staff preparing for screenings, and performers rehearsing for events. Tourists exploring the historic site, staff preparing for screenings, and performers rehearsing for events. Its grand Egyptian-inspired architecture, with towering columns, intricate carvings, and a lavish auditorium, gives the theater a timeless charm that continues to captivate visitors. Yet as night falls and the crowds leave, the theater takes on a different, more mysterious presence, one that has inspired numerous accounts of ghostly activity over the decades. Visitors often report sudden cold drafts moving through the auditorium, hallways, and lobby areas, even when doors and windows are securely closed. These unexplained chills are frequently accompanied by the sound of phantom applause, as an invisible audience is clapping from the empty seats. One late-night staff member described walking through the auditorium after screening. and hearing rhythmic clapping that echoed through the hall, fading gradually as he moved toward the stage. Despite searching for a logical explanation, no one else was present, leaving him with the undeniable impression of a lingering, unseen audience from the theater's past. Actors and performers have reported even more striking phenomena. Shadowy figures dressed in Egyptian-style costumes have been observed moving across the stage during rehearsals or after performances. One actress, rehearsing a dramatic scene, recalled seeing a tall figure draped in ornate robes pacing along the wings. When she turned to confront the figure, it vanished into the dimly lit shadows, leaving only the sound of a faint rustle and the sense of an unseen presence. Similar sightings have been reported by stagehands and technicians, who often hear footsteps, whispers, and faint movements in areas that should be empty. These experiences suggest that the theater may be haunted by performers from a bygone era, particularly those from the silent film period when the Egyptian theater was at its peak. Auditory phenomena are a common feature of the theater's haunting. Staff frequently report hearing faint echoes of dialogue, musical scores, or footsteps long after rehearsals have ended. One projectionist described hearing the soft clatter of a typewriter and muffled voices in the projection booth, while the theater was completely dark and empty. Actors rehearsing late at night have also reported hearing old musical cues and line readings overlapping with their own performances, giving the eerie sensation that they are sharing the stage with performers who lived decades ago. These sounds, while fleeting, are clear enough to convince many that the theater retains traces of its past in an almost tangible form. The architecture of the Egyptian theater amplifies these phenomena. Its high ceilings, expansive auditorium, and narrow backstage corridors create acoustics that carry even the faintest sounds, making whispers, footsteps, and claps appear immediate and deliberate. Shadows cast by stage lights, decorative columns, and elaborate set pieces enhance the perception of movement, often making fleeting glimpses of figures seem intentional. Even the subtle shifting of curtains, props, or costumes can appear purposeful, reinforcing the impression that the theater is alive with unseen activity. Paranormal experts who have studied the Egyptian theater suggest that many of the reported experiences are tied to residual energy from the silent film era. Actors, stagehands, and audience members from nearly a century ago may have left imprints on the space, replaying in moments when the theater is quiet and still. Other experts theorize that some of these spirits remain consciously engaged, observing performances, pacing the stage, and interacting subtly with current staff. The repeated reports of shadowy figures, phantom applause, and chilling drafts suggest that these experiences are persistent, not random, giving the theater a unique, living connection to its history. Even visitors occasionally encounter these ghostly phenomena. Tourists exploring the auditorium after hours have described feeling sudden cold spots, hearing faint clapping from the empty seats, or glimpsing figures dressed in vintage Egyptian costumes disappearing behind columns. These encounters, while brief, leave a lasting impression, reminding those who witness them that the Egyptian theater is more than a historical city. It is a space where the past remains palpable, interacting with the present in subtle yet unmistakable ways. For performers, staff, and visitors alike, the Egyptian theater is more than an architectural marvel or cultural landmark. Phantom applause, cold drafts, shadowy figures, and disembodied sounds transform it into a space where the energy of past performers continues to influence the present. The stage, wings, auditorium, and backstage areas act as conduits of the echoes of a bygone era, allowing those present to feel the presence of silent film actors and performers long after their time has passed. Even when the theater is empty and the lights are down, the Egyptian theater remains alive with unseen activity, replaying fragments of its illustrious history and ensuring that the spirit of performance endures well beyond the final bow. The spirit of performance endures well beyond the final bow. The Orpheum Theater in Pasadena, California, is a historic venue renowned for its stunning architecture, elaborate interior design, and deep connection to performing arts. Opened in 1928, this theater has hosted countless plays, concerts, and community events, becoming a cornerstone of Pasadena's cultural life. Its ornate balconies, gilded ceilings, and grand stage give a sense of elegance and history that continues to draw performers and audiences alike. By day, The theater is a hub of activity, with staff preparing for upcoming performances, technicians adjusting lighting and sound, and performers rehearsing lines and choreography. Its ornate balconies, gilded ceilings, and grand stage give a sense of elegance and history that continues to draw performers and audiences alike. Yet, as evening falls and the theater empties, the Orpheum takes on a more mysterious character, one that has inspired numerous reports of unexplained activity over the decades. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves unseen hands moving props. Stagehands and performers alike have described moments when set pieces, chairs, and costume items shift on their own. During a rehearsal for a dramatic play, a crew member recalled arranging props on stage, only to return moments later and find them repositioned as if someone had been practicing or preparing for a scene. These incidents are often subtle yet deliberate, giving the impression that the theater is being tended by a presence unseen but attentive to the ongoing work. Performers sometimes feel these movements coincide with moments of creative intensity, as if the theater itself is helping guide the production. Phantom laughter is another frequent occurrence. Staff working late-night rehearsals or stage preparations report hearing laughter echoing through empty corridors and backstage areas. The sound is often described as light and playful, resembling the laughter of performers from decades past. One stagehand recounted hearing the faint sound of laughter during a rehearsal break, echoing from the wings where no one was present. These experiences, while sometimes startling, are rarely threatening. Instead, they give the impression of unseen company, a connection to the many performers who have graced the Orpheum stage over the years. Unexplained lighting phenomena also contribute to theater's haunted reputation. Staff have reported lights turning on and off seemingly at random, even in areas disconnected from power or in circuits that were shut down. During one rehearsal, a performer noticed the stage lights flickering rapidly, despite the control panel being turned off. Moments later, the lights returned to normal, only to flicker again minutes later. Technicians who have investigated these occurrences often find no electrical cause, leading many to conclude that some invisible force is influencing the theater's environment. This unpredictability adds a sense of suspense and mystery to late-night rehearsals and maintenance work. Auditory phenomena extend beyond laughter. Footsteps echoing across the stage, whispers in empty dressing rooms, and the rustling of costumes are frequently reported. One actress described hearing the soft shuffle of someone walking across the wings while she was rehearsing a monologue alone. When she looked, no one was there, but the sound continued for several moments before fading away. Similar experiences have been noted by crew members checking backstage areas late at night, further reinforcing the sense that the theater remains alive with unseen activity long after the audience has departed. The architecture of the Orpheum Theater enhances these experiences. Its expansive auditorium, high ceilings, and narrow backstage corridors amplify even the faintest sounds, making whispers, footsteps, and subtle movements seem more immediate and deliberate, enhancing the sense of movement where none exists, giving the impression that the theater is maintained and observed by invisible presences. Paranormal experts studying the Orpheum suggest that much of the activity may stem from residual energy left by decades performers, technicians, and audience members. The repeated presence of people rehearsing, performing, and attending events over decades could leave energetic imprints on the space, manifesting as moving props, flickering lights, or phantom laughter. Some investigators believe certain spirits remain actively engaged, continuing to attend the theater, observe performances, or interact subtly with staff, ensuring that the venue maintains its vitality and integrity. Visitors and staff occasionally encounter these phenomena firsthand. Tourists exploring the theater during after-hours tours have reported seeing props subtly shifted, shadows flitting across the stage, or hearing laughter echo from empty wings. Performers rehearsing solo acts have felt gentle nudges or brushes, as if invisible hands were guiding them. Stagehands frequently note lights flickering in areas that are otherwise disconnected from power. These experiences, while often brief, leave a lasting impression, highlighting the theater's unique character and enduring presence of its history. For staff, performers, and visitors, the Orpheum Theater in Pasadena is more than a historic venue. It is a living space where the energy of the past continues to interact with the present. Unseen hands, moving props, phantom laughter, flickering lights, and subtle auditory cues transform the theater into a place where history and performance coexist. The stage, wings, dressing rooms, and backstage corridors act as conduits of the presence of past performers and staff, keeping the spirit of the Orpheum alive. Even when the theater is empty and the lights are down, it continues to pulse with the echoes of its storied past, ensuring that the artistry and energy of generations remain present long after the final curtain falls. Built in the early 1920s, the theater quickly became a hub for live performances, film screenings, and community events, drawing both audiences and performers into its intimate and ornate space. By day, the Rex Theater hums with energy. Staff prepares sets, actors rehearse their lines, and technicians manage lighting and sound. However, as the day winds down and the crowds leave, the theater reportedly transforms into a space where unseen presences linger, leaving those who remain with experiences that defy explanation. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves a shadowy man pacing the backstage area. Actors and stagehands have described seeing a dark figure moving with deliberate purpose, sometimes lingering near props or observing rehearsals from the wings. One actor recounted arriving early for a rehearsal and noticing the figure pacing in the dimly lit corridor behind the stage. As he approached, the shadow vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only a subtle chill and the unmistakable impression of being watched. Staff speculate that this presence may be the spirit of a former director who died during rehearsals, a man whose dedication perfecting performances keeps him tethered to the theater. Unexpected movement of props is another hallmark of the Rex Theatria's hauntings. Stagehands frequently report chairs, set pieces, and costume items shifting without explanation. During a rehearsal for a dramatic scene, a prop table arranged meticulously was found rearranged moments later, as if someone had been practicing or adjusting the setup in secret. These incidents are often subtle but deliberate, suggesting an invisible hand at work. Some performers feel that the ghostly director is actively involved, helping to refine performances and maintain the integrity of the shows, even decades after his death. Auditory phenomena add another layer of mystery to the Rex Theater. Actors have reported hearing faint footsteps pacing backstage, whispers in empty corridors, and muted voices reciting lines from rehearsals long past. One actress preparing for a monologue felt the unmistakable sound of pacing behind her, followed by the soft rustle of scripts or costumes, yet no one was present. Stagehands and technicians echo similar experiences, noting sound of movement in areas they had just checked, and occasional muffled laughter or murmurs that seem entirely disconnected from reality. These auditory experiences contribute to the sense that the theater remains alive with the energy of those who worked there long ago. Its narrow wings, high ceiling, and reflective surfaces create acoustics that carry even faint sounds, making footsteps, whispers, and movements appear intentional and deliberate. Shadows cast by stage lighting and ornate set pieces can create fleeting images that resemble human figures, enhancing perception of ghostly activity. Even minor shifts in props, curtains, or costumes are often interpreted as purposeful, reinforcing belief that unseen presences are actively engaged with the theater. Paranormal experts who have studied the Rex Theater suggest that these phenomena may be a combination of residual energy and active haunting. The director, performers, and staff who work tirelessly in the space may have left lasting energetic imprints that occasionally manifest, repeating gestures and movements from the past. Other investigators theorize that the shadowy figure may be a conscious spirit, devoted to maintaining the quality and flow of performances, appearing when the theater is quiet to observe or guide rehearsals. The consistency of reports of shadowy figures, moving props, footsteps, and whispers lends credibility to the idea that these experiences are not isolated but part of the theater's ongoing spectral presence. Visitors and performers occasionally witness these phenomena firsthand. Tourists exploring the theater after hours have described glimpsing shadowy figures behind the stage or sensing invisible hands moving props. Actors rehearsing late at night have felt subtle nudges or brushes, as if someone unseen were guiding their movements or offering silent direction. Stagehands often report lights flickering or props shifting as they move through the wings. These encounters, while brief, leave a lasting impression, reinforcing the Rex Theatria's reputation as a venue where the past remains vividly present. For performers, staff, and visitors alike, the Rex Theater is more than a historic building. It is a living space where history and the present intertwine. Shadowy figures, moving props, footsteps, and whispers create an environment in which the dedication and energy of past performers remain palpable. The stage, wings, corridors, and dressing rooms act as conduits of the theater's enduring spirit, particularly that of the director, who reportedly died while perfecting his shows. Even after the theater is empty and the lights are down, the Rex Theater continues to pulse with unseen activity, replaying fragments of its history and reminding all who enter that the spirit of performance endures long after the final curtain falls. The Los Angeles Theater in downtown Los Angeles is one of the city's most opulent and historic movie palaces, renowned for its ornate interior, grand chandeliers, and lavish design that reflects the golden age of cinema. Opened in 1931, it quickly became a premier destination for film premieres, live performances, and special events, attracting audiences eager to experience its elegance and cinematic grandeur. By day, the theater is alive with activity. Staff preparing the stage and auditorium, technicians adjusting lighting and sound systems, and visitors exploring the historic interior. By day, the theater is alive with activity. Staff preparing the stage and auditorium, technicians adjusting lighting and sound systems, and visitors exploring the historic interior. Yet, after hours, the theater takes on a different character, one that has inspired countless accounts of paranormal activity over the decades, giving it a reputation as one of Los Angeles' most haunted cultural landmarks. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves apparitions in the balcony and on the stage. Visitors and staff have described fleeting figures dressed in the fashions of past decades, sitting in the balcony seats or moving across the stage. These apparitions often appear briefly, observe out of the corner of the eye, and vanish when attention is focused directly on them. One usher reported seeing a woman in 1930s attire seated in the balcony, her eyes fixed on the empty stage below. As he approached to investigate, she disappeared, leaving behind only the faint rustle of fabric and an inexplicable chill. These sightings suggest that the energy of past patrons and performers remains imprinted within the theater, replaying moments long after the original audience has left. Auditory experiences are equally prominent at the Los Angeles Theater. Staff and visitors frequently report hearing phantom footsteps echoing along empty corridors, whispers in the darkened auditorium, and the faint rustling of costumes backstage. One stagehand recalled setting up equipment late at night when he heard the unmistakable sound of shoes pacing the stage, accompanied by faint murmured dialogue. Turning to locate the source, he found the stage completely empty, yet the sound persisted for several moments before fading away. These experiences create a strong sense of unseen presence, suggesting that the theater remains alive with the echoes of its long history. Some witnesses have reported seeing actors from old films performing silently on stage. One visitor described entering the theater for a private tour and observing a shadowy group moving through a dramatic scene, their lips forming lines that were never heard. The figures performed with precise timing and gestures, vanishing completely when the visitor blinked or tried to approach. Stagehands and technicians have echoed similar accounts, noting fleeting glimpses of performers who appeared to belong to the theater's early cinematic era. These silent performances, combined with ghostly apparitions in the balcony, create the impression of a space where the past continues to enact itself, almost as if the theater refuses to forget its legacy. The Los Angeles Theatria's architecture amplifies these haunting experiences. Its high ceilings, expansive auditorium, and intricate decorative elements create acoustics that carry even faint sounds, making footsteps, whispers, and murmurs appear immediate and deliberate. Shadows cast by chandeliers, stage lights, and ornate moldings can create fleeting illusions of movement, enhancing the sense of ghostly presence. These haunting experiences, even minor shifts in curtains, props, or seating can appear intentional, reinforcing the belief that unseen forces continue to inhabit the theater. The repeated presence of performers, technicians, and audiences over decades could leave lasting imprints that occasionally manifest in the form of apparitions, phantom footsteps, and silent performances. Other investigators theorize that some spirits remain consciously engaged, continuing to inhabit the balcony and stage, observing rehearsals, or silently participating in performances. The consistency of reports of apparitions in the balcony, shadowy stage performers' footsteps, and with Spursel lends weight to the idea that these experiences are tied directly to the theater's history and the energy of those who once occupied it. Even visitors occasionally encounter these phenomena firsthand. Tourists exploring the theater after hours have reported seeing fleeting figures on stage or in the balcony, hearing soft footsteps, or sensing invisible presences moving through the auditorium. Staff working late rehearsals often experience subtle guidance, a feeling of being watched, or props shifting inexplicably. The cumulative effect of these encounters is a strong impression that the theater is not merely a building, but a living space, shaped and animated by the energy of its past performers and audiences. For staff, performers, and visitors alike, the Los Angeles Theater is more than a historic movie palace. It is a living repository of cinematic and theatrical history. Apparitions, phantom footsteps, whispered voices, and silent performances create an environment where the past interacts seamlessly with the present. The stage, wings, balcony, and auditorium act as conduits of the presence of former actors, patrons, and staff, ensuring that the spirit performance endures, even when the theater is empty and the lights are dimmed. The Los Angeles Theater continues to pulse with unseen activity, replaying fragments of its illustrious past, and reminding all who enter that the magic and energy of Hollywood's golden era are never truly gone. The Globe Theater in Hollywood is a historic venue celebrated for its classic design, intimate stage, and deep connection to the city's theatrical and cinematic past. Open in the early 20th century, the theater quickly became a hub for live performances, film screenings, and community events, drawing audiences eager to experience both its performances and its elegant old-world charm. Its ornate balconies, polished wooden floors, and grand stage create an atmosphere that feels timeless, a place where art and history intersect. By day, the Globe Theater is a bustling space, with staff preparing sets, technicians adjusting lights and sound, and performers rehearsing lines or choreography. Yet, as the theater empties and night falls, a different presence emerges, one that has fascinated and unnerved staff, performers, and paranormal enthusiasts for decades. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at the Globe Theater involves strange flickering lights. Staff have described chandeliers and stage lighting dimming, brightening, or pulsating without explanation. During a rehearsal, a lighting technician noticed that several footlights along the stage flickered in rhythm with the music, despite all circuits being turned off. The lights returned to normal after several moments, only to flicker again minutes later. Crew members often interpret these occurrences as a sign that the theater itself is alive, responding to the energy of performances or the presence of spirits lingering from past eras. Cold drafts are another hallmark of the Globe's supernatural reputation. Even when doors and windows are securely closed, performers and staff report sudden chills moving to the auditorium, backstage corridors, and seating areas. One actor recalled feeling a sharp drop in temperature while preparing for a scene on stage, accompanied by a faint sense of being observed. Such inexplicable drafts often coincide with other paranormal activity, including the appearance of shadowy figures and phantom applause, creating a multi-sensory experience that leaves those present with an eerie sense of the theater's unseen inhabitants. Shadowy figures on stage are among the most startling occurrences. Actors rehearsing alone have reported glimpsing indistinct silhouettes pacing the wings, moving across the stage, or standing in the shadows near set pieces. One performer described seeing a tall figure dressed in vintage attire, watching silently from the corner of the stage before vanishing as soon as attention was directed toward it. Stagehands and technicians have recounted similar sightings, often coinciding with moving props, unexplained noises, or flickering lights. Many believe these figures are spirits of former performers who remain attached to theater, replaying their roles or observing the current generation of actors. Phantom applause is another phenomenon frequently reported at the Globe Theater. Staff working late-night rehearsals or after hours often hear the faint sound of clapping coming from empty seating areas. One usher recalled setting up the auditorium for a private rehearsal when he distinctly heard applause echoing from the balcony, though the theater was completely empty. Such auditory experiences reinforce the impression that the theater is still populated by the spirits of its past audiences, engaged and responsive even long after the seats have been vacated. Paranormal investigators who have examined the Globe Theater have captured ghostly silhouettes in the empty seating areas and along the stage. The repeated presence of performers, audiences, and staff over decades may have left lasting imprints on the theater, while some entities may remain consciously engaged, interacting subtly with performers or guiding them in unseen ways. The theater's architecture enhances these experiences. High ceilings, reflective surfaces, narrow backstage corridors, and elaborate stage designs create acoustics that carry faint sounds, making whispers, footsteps, and claps appear immediate and purposeful. Shadows cast by stage lighting and ornate features can give the impression of movement where none exists, while minor shifts in props, curtains, or equipment are interpreted as deliberate gestures by unseen hands. These elements combined make the Globe Theater a space where history feels present and palpable. Visitors occasionally encounter these phenomena firsthand. Tourists on after-hours tours have reported seeing shadowy figures flitting across the stage or lingering near empty balconies, hearing faint footsteps or applause, and feeling sudden chills in the auditorium. Actors rehearsing late at night sometimes feel unseen guidance, subtle touches, or a sense of being observed by the spirits of those who performed decades earlier. Crew members working alone often note lights flickering or props shifting without explanation. Collectively, these experiences create an undeniable sense that the theater is alive in ways that go beyond the physical. For staff, performers, and visitors alike, the Globe Theater is more than a historic Hollywood venue. Flickering lights, cold drafts, shadowy figures, and phantom applause transform it into a living monument to the city's performing arts history. The stage, wings, auditorium, and seating areas act as conduits for the energy of past performers, audiences, and staff, allowing the theater's rich history to persist in the present. Even when the theater is empty and the lights are down, the Globe Theater continues to pulse with unseen activity, replaying fragments of performances long past, and ensuring that the spirit of artistic expression endures long after the final curtain has fallen. The Pasadena Playhouse in Pasadena, California, is a historic theater known for its elegant architecture, intimate stage, and rich legacy in the performing arts. Since its opening in 1924, the Playhouse has hosted countless plays, musicals, and community events, becoming a cornerstone of Southern California's cultural life. Its ornate ceilings, decorative moldings, and vintage auditorium create an atmosphere that feels both grand and timeless, offering performers and audiences alike a sense of being transported to another era. By day, the theater is alive with activity. Staff preparing stages, technicians adjusting lighting and sound, and actors rehearsing their lines. Since its opening in 1924, the Playhouse has hosted countless plays, musicals, and community events, becoming a cornerstone of Southern California's cultural life. Its ornate ceilings, decorative moldings, and vintage auditorium create an atmosphere that feels both grand and timeless, offering performers and audiences alike a sense of being transported to another era. By day, the theater is alive with activity. Staff preparing stages, technicians adjusting lighting and sound, and actors rehearsing their lines. Yet, after the lights dim and the doors close, the Pasadena Playhouse reportedly transforms into a place where the past lingers, giving rise to numerous accounts of paranormal activity over the years. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves flickering lights. Staff members have described chandeliers, stage lights, and corridor lamps dimming, brightening, or pulsing with no electrical explanation. During a rehearsal for a classic play, a lighting technician noticed the stage lights suddenly flicker in sync with a line being performed, even though all power circuits were properly controlled. The lights returned to normal, only to flicker again minutes later, leaving crew members convinced that some unseen force was present. These flickers often coincide with other unusual experiences. creating a sense that the theater itself is alive and responding to the energy of performers and staff. One stagehand recalled checking the backstage area after hearing rhythmic walking, only to find no one present. Actors, too, have reported similar experiences while rehearsing alone, feeling the impression of someone pacing nearby or passing behind them. These unexplained movements contribute to theater's reputation as a space where unseen presences linger, observing and participating in the activity long after the building is officially empty. Whispers in empty dressing rooms are also commonly reported. Performers entering the rooms to prepare for a show have described hearing soft voices, indistinct lines of dialogue, or murmur directions that seem to come from nowhere. One actor recalled hearing the faint sound of someone adjusting a costume while no other person was present, followed by a whispered comment that faded as quickly as it appeared. These auditory experiences suggest that the theater may retain the energy of past performers, replaying fragments of their presence in moments when the space is quiet and unoccupied. Shadowy figures are another striking feature of the Playhouse's reported hauntings. Actors and staff have seen indistinct silhouettes moving across the stage, wings, or dressing rooms, sometimes interacting subtly with props or costumes. One actress described a figure adjusting a piece of scenery during a rehearsal, only for it to vanish when she approached. Stagehands have also observed similar figures repositioning chairs, set pieces, or costume racks, disappearing before anyone could get a clear look. Many believe these shadows are the spirits of former performers who remain devoted to the theater, ensuring that preparations and performances are maintained with meticulous care even after their passing. The architecture of the Pasadena Playhouse amplifies these paranormal experiences. High ceilings, narrow corridors, and reflective surfaces create acoustics that carry whispers, footsteps, and faint sounds throughout the building. Shadows cast by stage lighting, curtains, and set pieces often appear to move independently, enhancing perception of figures shifting across the stage or backstage areas. Even subtle shifts in props, curtains, or costumes can seem deliberate, reinforcing the impression that unseen hands are at work behind the scenes. Paranormal experts who have studied the Playhouse suggest that these occurrences may be a combination of residual energy and active spirits. The repeated presence of performers, stagehands, and audiences over decades may have left energetic imprints, manifesting as flickering lights, whispers, or shadowy figures. Other investigators theorize that some spirits remain consciously engaged, moving through dressing rooms, wings, and the stage to adjust props or observe rehearsals. The consistency of reports of flickering lights, footsteps, whispers, and moving shadows indicates that these experiences are persistent, tied closely to theater's rich history and the devotion of its past performers. Visitors and staff occasionally encounter the phenomena firsthand. Tourists on after-hours tours have reported glimpsing shadowy figures in empty dressing rooms or backstage areas, hearing faint footsteps echoing through the corridors, sensing cold draft that seem to come from nowhere. Actors rehearsing late at night have felt subtle touches on costumes or props, as if guided by invisible hands. Stagehands working alone frequently notice lights flickering and props moving inexplicably. These experiences leave a lasting impression, reminding all who enter that the Pasadena Playhouse is a living monument to the art and history of performance. For staff, performers, and visitors alike, the Pasadena Playhouse is more than a historic theater. Flickering lights, phantom footsteps, whispered voices, and shadowy figures transform it into a space where the past continues to interact with the present. The stage, wings, dressing rooms, and corridors act as conduits of the presence of previous generations of performers, allowing the theater's history and energy to persist. Even when the building is empty and the lights are down, the Pasadena Playhouse continues to pulse with unseen activity, replaying fragments of its storied past and ensuring that the spirit of performance endures long after the final curtain falls. The Beverly Hills Playhouse in Beverly Hills, California, is a historic venue with a long-standing reputation for both exceptional theatrical training and eerie, unexplained activity. Established in the early 20th century, the Playhouse has become a cornerstone for aspiring actors, offering classes, workshops, and performances in a space that combines elegant architecture with a deep connection to Hollywood's artistic legacy. Its intimate stage, ornate interior, and vintage ambience create an environment that feels alive with history. By day, the theater bustles with energy, actors rehearsing scenes, instructors guiding students, and staff managing lighting and stage preparations. Yet, as the day winds down and the building empties, the Beverly Hills Playhouse reportedly transforms into a space where the present of the past becomes unmistakable, giving rise to countless accounts of paranormal activity. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves sudden cold spots. Actors and staff working late at night often describe walking through warm, well-lit corridors, only to be struck by inexplicable chills. These cold patches appear in dressing rooms, along hallways, and near the stage, sometimes lingering just long enough to be felt but leaving no discernible source. One performer recalled finishing a rehearsal when she stepped into wings and felt an intense cold envelop her, as though someone unseen had passed right by. These abrupt temperature shifts are often accompanied by other phenomena, creating the sense that the theater is alive with unseen presences. Staff members have described doors swinging slowly or slamming shut without any physical cause, even when all entrances are secured. During one late-night rehearsal, a stagehand noticed a door to the backstage area slowly creak open by itself, followed by a soft click as it closed moments later. Actors and crew alike report that these events often occur in areas associated with past performances or where previous actors would have prepared, suggesting a lingering connection between the present and the theater's history. Phantom laughter is frequently reported by performers and staff alike. It is often described as faint, distant, and fleeting, echoing from empty wings, hallways, or the stage itself. One actor rehearsing a dramatic monologue recalled hearing soft, playful laughter coming from the shadows, though no one else was present. These sounds, while subtle, leave a lasting impression and seem to interact with the energy of current performances, as if past performers are quietly observing or participating from beyond the visible world. Shadowy figures are another prominent feature of the Playhouse's hauntings. Actors rehearsing alone or with minimal staff present have reported seeing indistinct silhouettes moving through the wings or along the edges of the stage. One performer described a dark figure pacing near a prop table, watching the rehearsal unfold. When she turned to confront it, the figure vanished instantly. Stagehands have similarly reported glimpses of shadows shifting among curtains, racks of costumes and equipment, appearing and disappearing in a manner that suggests awareness and purpose. Many believe these figures are the spirits of former performers, still devoted to the theater and its productions. The architecture of the Beverly Hills Playhouse amplifies these eerie experiences. Narrow corridors, high ceiling, and reflective surfaces create acoustics that carry footsteps, whispers, and faint movements across the building, making them seem immediate and deliberate. Shadows cast by stage lights, props, and curtains can appear to move independently, enhancing perception of ghostly figures. Even minor disturbances, such as a prop sliding slightly or a curtain brushing against a rail, are often interpreted as the deliberate actions of unseen hands. These elements combine to create a theater in which history, energy, and the present coexist in a tangible way. Paranormal experts who have investigated the Playhouse suggest that much of the activity may stem from both residual energy and active spirits. Decades of performances, rehearsals, and audiences could have left lasting impressions that occasionally manifest as cold spots, doors moving, laughter, and shadowy figures. The consistency of reported phenomena, cold spots, phantom doors, laughter, and shadow figures supports the idea that these occurrences are more than coincidence, tied closely to theater's rich history and the devotion of past performers. Visitors occasionally experience these paranormal events firsthand. Students attending late-night classes or workshops have reported feeling sudden chills in dressing rooms, hearing laughter echoing from empty wings, or seeing fleeting shadowy figures along the stage. Actors rehearsing after hours sometimes feel invisible nudges, subtle movements of props, or the presence of unseen observers. Stagehands working alone frequently notice doors opening or closing without explanation. Collectively, these experiences create the sense that the Beverly Hills Playhouse is a living, breathing space where the energy of past performers remains tangible and ever-present. For staff, performers, and visitors alike, the Beverly Hills Playhouse is more than a historic theater. It is a space where the past continues to coexist with the present. Cold spots, phantom doors, whispered laughter, and shadowy figures transform a playhouse into a venue where history and performance intermingle. The stage, wings, dressing rooms, and corridors serve as conduits for the spirits of former actors, allowing the theater's legacy to persist. For staff, performers, and visitors alike, the Beverly Hills Playhouse is more than a historic theater. It is a space where the past continues to coexist with the present. Even after the building empties and the lights are down, the dedication, presence, and artistry of generations past remain a living part of the theater's enduring story. The Vista Theater in Los Feliz, California, is a historic single-screen movie theater renowned for its vintage charm, neon marquee, and classic 1930s architecture. Since opening in 1923, the theater has become a local landmark, attracting film lovers, tourists, and Hollywood enthusiasts drawn to its nostalgic atmosphere and intimate auditorium. By day, the Vista Theater hums with activity. Staff cleaning the lobby, projectionists preparing films, and ticket attendants greeting eager moviegoers. However, once the theater empties and the night settles in, the space reportedly takes on a far more mysterious character, with numerous accounts of paranormal activity that have intrigued staff, visitors, and paranormal investigators alike. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at the Vista Theater involves flickering lights. Staff members working late-night shifts or after-hours maintenance often notice the interior lights, including the projector booth lamps and auditorium sconces, flicker without explanation. During one evening setup, a projectionist reported the main projector lights flickering in rhythm with the opening credits of silent film, despite all electrical circuits being properly turned on and no one touching the controls. Such unexplained flickering often coincides with other unusual events, creating an atmosphere where the theater feels alive with unseen energy. Strange sounds are another hallmark of the Vista Theatria's hauntings. Staff have reported hearing footsteps echoing through the empty aisles, the subtle creaking of theater seats, and muffled whispers that seem to come from the walls themselves. One usher recounted walking through the darkened auditorium when he heard distinct footsteps pacing behind him. Turning quickly, he saw no one present, yet the sound continued for several moments before fading away. These auditory experiences, subtle yet unmistakable, contribute to the sense that the theater is not entirely empty, that unseen patrons or staff from another era are still moving through its spaces. Phantom patrons are another commonly reported phenomenon. Staff and visitors alike have described seeing fleeting shadowy figures seated in the aisles or near the balcony, only to vanish when approached. During a late-night cleaning session, a custodian reported glimpsing a shadowy form in the front row, appearing to watch the empty stage and screen. As he moved closer, the figure dissipated, leaving behind only the faint echo of movement and the lingering sensation of being observed. These apparitions give the impression that the theater's history is replaying itself, that former moviegoers or staff continue to inhabit the space long after the lights go down. Shadowy figures near the projector booth are another eerie feature. Projectionists working late or alone have reported seeing silhouettes moving around the booth or near the film reels. One projectionist described catching a glimpse of a tall, indistinct figure leaning over the control panel, only for it to vanish when he turned fully to look. These sightings, often accompanied by the flickering of projector lights or the subtle hum of machinery starting and stopping on its own, suggest the presence of an entity intimately connected to theater and its operation. Some speculate that these figures are former projectionists or theater employees who continue to watch over the space and ensure its continued functioning. The Vista Theatria's architecture enhances these experiences. Its high ceiling, narrow aisles, and reflective surfaces amplify faint sounds, making whispers, footsteps, and shifting chairs seem immediate and deliberate. The interplay of light and shadow, combined with ornate features and dimmed interior lamps, can create fleeting illusions of movement or figures appearing where none exist. Even subtle disturbances, such as a sliding seat or the rustle of a curtain, are often interpreted as a deliberate action of an unseen presence. These elements combine to give the Vista Theater a unique atmosphere where history, energy, and the present intertwine. Paranormal experts investigating the Vista Theater suggest that much of the activity may be residual energy left behind by decades of patrons, staff, and performers. Repeated human activity, emotional intensity, and prolonged occupation could leave lasting impressions that manifest as flickering lights, footsteps, or shadowy figures. Some investigators also propose that certain spirits may remain consciously present, moving through aisles, monitoring projector booth, or observing the auditorium. The consistency of reported phenomena, including flickering lights, phantom sounds, shadow figures, and ghostly patronza, supports the idea that these experiences are tied directly to theater's rich history and long-standing cultural presence. Visitors occasionally encounter these phenomena firsthand. Tourists on after-hours tours have reported glimpsing shadowy figures moving through the aisles or lingering near the balcony, hearing faint footsteps, and sensing invisible presences while standing in the auditorium. Staff working late-night shifts often feel sudden chills, observe lights flickering inexplicably, or see props or chairs subtly shifting. Projectionists report equipment starting and stopping on its own, adding to theater's eerie reputation. Collectively, these experiences leave a lasting impression, reinforcing the sense that the Vista Theater is more than a historic bodega. It is a space where the energy of the past continues to live on. For staff, visitors, and film enthusiasts alike, the Vista Theater in Los Feliz is not only a historic movie palace, but also a living repository of memories and energy. Flickering lights, phantom footsteps, ghostly patrons, and shadowy figures transform it into a space where the past continually interacts with the present. The auditorium, aisles, balcony, and projector booths serve as conduits of theater's enduring energy, allowing the spirit of its former employees and audiences to persist. Even when the theater is empty and the lights are down, the Vista Theater continues to hum with unseen activity, preserving the legacy, atmosphere, and presence of its storied past for all who enter. The Egyptian Theater on Hollywood Boulevard is one of Los Angeles' most iconic and historic movie palaces. Celebrated for its ornate Egyptian revival architecture, grand stage, and deep connection to the city's cinematic history. Opened in 1922, the theater quickly became a premier venue for movie premieres, live performances, and cultural events, drawing audiences eager to witness both the glamour of Hollywood and the unique atmosphere of the Egyptian-inspired interior. By day, the theater hums with activity, staff preparing the auditorium, technicians adjusting lighting and sound, and actors or performers rehearsing on stage. Yet, when the theater empties and night falls, a different presence emerges, one that has inspired countless stories of paranormal activity, making the Egyptian theater a magnet for ghost enthusiasts and curious visitors alike. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves ghostly apparitions. Actors, staff, and visitors have described seeing indistinct figures moving across the stage, pacing backstage, or lingering in the wings. Many of these apparitions appear to be dressed in the fashions of Hollywood's silent film era, as if performers from the past have returned to continue their work. One actor rehearsing a dramatic scene recalled glimpsing a shadowy figure adjusting a prop in the corner of the stage. When he turned to confront it, the figure vanished, leaving only the faint scent of old costumes and a lingering chill. Staff and performers alike report that these sightings are not isolated, and the figures often appear during quiet moments when the theater is otherwise empty. Cold drafts are another hallmark of the Egyptian theater's haunted reputation. Even with doors and windows securely closed, staff have experienced sudden drops in temperature in corridors, dressing rooms, and near the stage. These chilling pockets of air often accompany other paranormal activity, such as flickering lights or the movement of objects, creating an environment where the theater feels alive with unseen presences. One stagehand reported entering a dressing room to find the temperature drop abruptly, accompanied by the subtle rustle of a costume rack moving on its own. Such experiences are often fleeting, yet leave a lasting impression, reinforcing the sense that the theater holds the energy of performers from decades past. Staff working late-night rehearsals or after-hours tours often hear faint clapping echoing to the auditorium, as if an unseen audience is responding to a performance. One projectionist recounted finishing a private screening, only to hear applause and murmurs coming from the empty balcony, fading as quickly as they appeared. These auditory experiences contribute to the impression that the theater is still inhabited by the spirits of its original patrons, watching and reacting to performances long after the seats have been vacated. The activity backstage is particularly notable. Actors and crew members have reported figures from silent films pacing the wings, adjusting props, or moving scenery. One performer preparing for a rehearsal described feeling invisible hands repositioning set pieces with care, as though an unseen stage manager were ensuring the scene's perfection. Stagehands have similarly observed props moving inexplicably or chairs shifting position, with no physical explanation. Many believe these spirits are former performers devoted to their craft, returning nightly to practice perfect scenes, or simply remain part of the theater they loved in life. The Egyptian theater's architecture amplifies these paranormal experiences. High ceilings, narrow corridors, and reflective surfaces carry footsteps, whispers, and other subtle sounds. Elaborate Egyptian-inspired copyright COR, with its columns, hieroglyphics, and ornamental lighting, casts complex shadows that often seem to move independently. Even the slight movement of curtains, props, or costume racks can appear purposeful, heightening the perception of ghostly activity. These architectural features, combined with the theater's long history and emotional energy, create an environment where the past and present interact in tangible ways. Paranormal investigators have studied the Egyptian theater extensively. Using infrared cameras, EVP devices, and other equipment, investigators have captured fleeting shadows and unexplained sounds consistent with staff and visitor reports. Many conclude that the activity is a combination of residual energy and active spirits. The repeated presence of performers, audiences, and staff over decades may have left lasting energetic imprints, while certain entities may remain consciously engaged, guiding performances or maintaining backstage areas. The consistency of reported phenomena apparitions, cold drafts, phantom applause, and moving props supports the idea that the theater is more than a historic building. It is a living repository of Hollywood's early artistic energy. Visitors and staff occasionally experience the phenomena firsthand. Tourists on after-hours tours have reported seeing shadowy figures moving across the stage or pacing the wings, hearing faint applause from empty seats, or feeling sudden chills in the corridors. Actors rehearsing late at night have sensed invisible guidance, subtle touches, or the presence of unseen observers, ensuring that scenes are executed with precision. Crew members often notice lights flickering or props moving, lending credence to the idea that the Egyptian theater is continuously inhabited by the energy of its past performers and audiences. For performers, staff, and visitors, the Egyptian theater is more than a historic movie palace. It is a space where history continues to breathe. Ghostly apparitions, cold drafts, phantom applause, and shadowy figures transform into a theater where the past interacts seamlessly with the present. The stage, wings, auditorium, and dressing rooms act as conduits for the spirits of past performers, preserving the legacy of silent film actors, early Hollywood audiences, and devoted stagehands. Even when the theater is empty and the lights are dimmed, the Egyptian theater continues to resonate with unseen activity, keeping the spirit of performance alive long after the final curtain has fallen. The Paramount Theater in downtown Los Angeles stands as one of the city's most iconic and historic movie palaces, renowned for its opulent Art Deco design, grand stage, and illustrious connection to Hollywood's golden era. Opened in 1923, the theater quickly became a hub for film premieres, live performances, and cultural events, drawing crowds eager to experience its elegance and cinematic spectacle. By day, the Paramount Theater bustles with activity. Staff preparing the auditorium, projectionists adjusting reels, and performers rehearsing for upcoming shows. Yet, once the theater empties and the night falls, reports suggest that it transforms into a space alive with unseen presences, where the energy of early Hollywood performers continues to linger, leaving staff, actors, and visitors with an eerie sense of the past lingering in the present. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves cold spots. Staff working late hours often notice sudden drops in temperature in certain areas of the theater, including the wings, dressing rooms, and auditorium. These chilling pockets appear without explanation, often accompanied by a feeling of being observed. One stagehand recounted finishing a set adjustment backstage when a sudden cold swept through the corridor, causing him to pause in surprise. Such inexplicable shifts in temperature are commonly reported alongside other supernatural events, reinforcing the notion that the theater is not merely a building, but a space imbued with lingering energy. Flickering lights are another hallmark of the Paramount Theatria's paranormal activity. Staff have described chandeliers, sconces, and stage lighting dimming, brightening, or pulsating without any electrical cause. During a late rehearsal, a lighting technician noticed the footlights along the stage flickering rhythmically in sync with the movement of actors, despite all circuits being properly controlled. These phenomena often occur in conjunction with other ghostly manifestations, such as phantom footsteps or shadowy figures, creating an environment where the theater appears to respond to unseen forces. Staff and performers have described hearing distinct footsteps echoing to the empty corridors, wings, and auditorium, often moving in patterns that suggest someone pacing or crossing the stage. Phantom footsteps are among the most unsettling reports. One actor rehearsing alone reported hearing a series of deliberate steps approaching from the wings, pausing for a moment, and then retreating back into silence. These auditory experiences leave a profound impression, reinforcing the sense that the theater is still occupied by the spirits of those who once performed or worked there, continuing their routines even after the lights have dimmed. Shadowy figures on stage are another striking aspect of the Paramount Theatria's hauntings. Actors and crew members have reported seeing indistinct silhouettes take positions on stage or move along the wings as if performing. One actor preparing for a rehearsal described a dark figure pacing near the center of the stage, mimicking a pose from an old film or stage scene, only to vanish when he approached. Stagehands have also observed props shifting subtly, chairs moving and set pieces being adjusted as though guided by invisible hands. Many believe these figures are the spirits of early Hollywood actors, dedicated to their craft and continuing to inhabit the space where they once performed. The architecture of the Paramount Theater amplifies these experiences. Its high ceilings, expansive stage, and ornate interior features create acoustics that carry faint sounds, footsteps, and whispers throughout the building. Shadows cast by chandeliers, curtains, and decorative elements can appear to move independently, enhancing perception of ghostly figures. Even minor shifts in props or lighting can feel deliberate, reinforcing the idea that unseen presences are actively engaged in the theater's activities. Paranormal investigators have explored the Paramount Theater extensively, capturing images and recordings that suggest the presence of spirits. Infrared cameras have recorded fleeting silhouettes near the stage and in the wings, while audio equipment has picked up unexplained footsteps, whispers, and distant clapping. Many investigators suggest that these phenomena result from both residual inertia, impressions left behind by decades of performers, staff, and audiences, and active spirits who remain consciously engaged in observing or participating in theater's routines. The consistency of reports over decades adds weight to the idea that the Paramount Theater is more than a historic building. It is a living space where the past continually interacts with the present. Visitors occasionally experience these phenomena firsthand. Tourists exploring the theater after hours have reported seeing shadowy figures take positions on stage or pacing the wings, hearing faint footsteps and whispers, and sensing sudden cold drafts in empty corridors. Actors rehearsing late at night sometimes feel unseen guidance, subtle touches, or a presence watching their movements. Stagehands working alone have observed lights flickering, props shifting, and phantom sounds, creating an unmistakable impression that the energy of past performers remains tangible and active within the theater. For staff, performers, and visitors alike, the Paramount Theater is more than a historical monument. It is a space where Hollywood's early artistic energy continues to resonate. Cold spots, flickering lights, phantom footsteps, and shadowy performers transform the theater into a living archive of cinematic and theatrical history. The stage, wings, dressing rooms, and auditorium act as conduits of the spirits of early Hollywood actors and staff, allowing the theater's legacy to persist in the present. Even when the theater is empty and the lights are dimmed, the theater continues to pulse with unseen activity, preserving the magic, presence, and dedication of generations of performers. long after the final curtain has fallen. U of V walked behind the velvet curtains through the empty aisles and onto ghost-filled Sajiza. U of V glimpsed performers who never left, felt the chill of unseen hands, and heard whispers that linger long after the audience departs. Los Angeles theaters are more than places of arte. They are resting places for talent, tragedy,